Hey there, and welcome to Crime for Sleep. I know you're having trouble falling asleep, so let me keep you company with true crime stories from around the world. Before we dive in, I'm curious, where did you first hear this one? If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now get comfortable, and let's get into tonight's case. Crime 1, snow white and soft, they spilled over the porcelain like a nest. Underneath, the drain was clogged with something thicker, sticky, dark, and foul-smelling. Hidden beneath the feathers, a child's blanket was wrapped around a single shoe and a note, "Don't pluck her again." Detective Elias Mercer had been with the Springwood Police Department for 17 years, but nothing in his career had prepared him for what awaited at 4672 Sycamore Lane. The call had come in at 6:18 a.m. on a Tuesday in late October. The morning was unusually cold for northern Oregon, frost clinging to the edges of fallen leaves as he pulled into the driveway of the modest two-story home. Sarah Winters had lived alone in the house for nearly a decade. A retired elementary school teacher, she was known throughout the community for her kindness toward children and her collection of handcrafted bird figurines that lined her living room shelves. Her neighbors described her as gentle and predictable, the type who watered her garden every day at precisely 7 a.m. and brought homemade cookies to community meetings. 3 days earlier, Sarah's daughter Emily had called the police. Her mother wasn't answering the phone. This wasn't like her. They spoke every Sunday at 5 p.m. without fail. When Emily finally drove from Portland to check on her mother, she found the house locked from the inside, lights still on in the kitchen. After circling the property twice, she peered through the bathroom window and saw what appeared to be white fluff covering the floor. That's when she called 911. The door was locked from the inside, Officer Jenna Torres explained to Detective Mercer as they stood in the entryway. "We had to break the bathroom door. Nothing else in the house appears disturbed." The feathers were everywhere, not just in the bathtub, but scattered across the floor, stuck to the walls with what preliminary testing suggested was corn syrup mixed with food coloring. The coppery smell beneath the artificial sweetness made Mercer's stomach turn. "Where is she?" Mercer asked, surveying the scene. "Where's Sarah Winters?" Torres pointed to the bathtub. "That's just it. She's not here. No body, no blood that we can confirm is human, just this." As forensics photographed and collected evidence, Mercer moved through the house. Sarah's bed was made. Her reading glasses sat folded on her nightstand beside a dog-eared paperback. In the kitchen, a cup of tea had evaporated, leaving only a dark stain at the bottom of a porcelain mug. The television guide was open to last Thursday's programming. What struck Mercer most was the bedroom closet. Inside, hanging in perfect order, were Sarah's clothes, except for a single empty hanger that seemed out of place. According to Emily, her mother owned a light blue cardigan that she wore nearly every day. That cardigan was nowhere to be found. As the investigation unfolded over the following days, strange details emerged. Sarah's neighbor, Hank Pullman, reported hearing a car around 2 a.m. on the night she disappeared, unusual for their quiet cul-de-sac. The local craft store owner remembered Sarah buying unusual quantities of artificial feathers over the past month. She said she was making something special for her granddaughter's birthday, the shopkeeper recalled, but she seemed distracted, not herself. Then came the first breakthrough. Security footage from a gas station 3 miles from Sarah's home showed her filling her car at 11:42 p.m. the night before her daughter reported her missing. She wasn't alone. A tall figure in a dark coat stood beside her, face obscured by the angle. Sarah's body language appeared stiff, unnatural. The investigation took an unexpected turn when Emily provided additional context. Mom used to work at Ridgeview Elementary with a woman named Catherine Doyle. They had some kind of falling out 20 years ago. Mom never talked about it, but I remember overhearing her on the phone once, saying, "Catherine still blames me for what happened to Lily." Detective Mercer found Catherine Doyle living in a small apartment in Eugene. Now in her 70s, Catherine's hands trembled as she invited him inside. Her walls were covered with photographs of a young girl with bright eyes and a gap-toothed smile. "Lily was my daughter," Catherine explained, voice barely above a whisper. "She died in 1996, an accident at the school. Sarah was supervising recess that day." According to Catherine, 8-year-old Lily had been playing on the playground when she fell from the top of a slide. The official investigation ruled it an accident, but Catherine had always believed there was more to the story. "Sarah changed her statement 3 times about where she was standing when it happened," Catherine said. "And there was another child, a boy named Marcus, who stopped coming to school the week after. His family moved away suddenly." When Mercer asked about the feathers, Catherine's expression changed. Lily loved birds. She collected feathers, had them all over her room. She paused, then added, "The day before she died, some kids put feathers in her desk drawer at school. Said they were plucking her like a chicken because she was so scared all the time." The investigation led Mercer to track down Marcus Fletcher, now a 35-year-old accountant living in Seattle. When questioned, Marcus initially claimed to have no memory of Lily or the incident, but after persistent questioning, his composure cracked. "I saw what happened," he finally admitted. "It wasn't an accident. There were 3 older boys. They were teasing Lily, pushing her toward the edge of the platform. Mrs. Winters was supposed to be watching, but she was talking to someone on her cell phone. When Lily fell, Mrs. Winters made us promise not to tell what really happened, said we'd get in trouble too." As the pieces slowly came together, Emily made another discovery while sorting through her mother's attic, a small wooden box containing newspaper clippings about Lily's death, a child's shoe that matched the one found in the bathtub, and a journal. The final entry, dated the night before Sarah disappeared, read, "Catherine called today. She knows. After all these years, she found out I changed my report. She's coming tonight. I deserve whatever happens." 5 days after the investigation began, Catherine Doyle was found in her apartment, dead from an apparent suicide. Beside her body was a note, "I've waited 27 years for her to admit what she did. Now that she has, I can join my Lily." Sarah Winters' car was discovered in a long-term parking lot at Portland International Airport. Security footage showed her walking into the terminal, still wearing the missing blue cardigan, carrying a single suitcase. She boarded a flight to Mexico City, traveling under a name she'd established with false credentials nearly 2 decades earlier. The bathroom scene, investigators concluded, had been Catherine's work, a symbolic recreation of her daughter's torment before confronting Sarah. The feathers represented Lily's love of birds and the bullying she'd endured. The sticky substance was meant to symbolize blood that should have been on Sarah's hands. As for Sarah Winters, international authorities continue to search, but the trail has gone cold. Some speculate she planned her escape years ago, anticipating that one day her past would catch up with her. Others believe she may have met with foul play after leaving the country. Emily refuses to believe her mother could have been complicit in a child's death. "There must be more to the story," she insists. "My mother dedicated her life to children." The house on Sycamore Lane remains empty, its bathroom now clean of feathers and artificial blood. But for Detective Mercer, one question continues to haunt him. In this tale of guilt, grief, and retribution spanning 3 decades, who was truly the victim and who was the perpetrator? Perhaps the only person who knows the complete truth is somewhere in Mexico, or perhaps beyond, still carrying the weight of a blue cardigan and the memory of a child falling through the air on a sunny playground, white feathers floating around her like snow. Crime 2, each one stood upright against the walls, old, stained, full of slashes. When they pulled one down, something clinked behind it. A chain, still bolted to the wall with a fabric wristband on the end, sewn into the corner of the mattress. She still dreams here. The house at 471 Maple Grove Lane had always been unremarkable. A modest two-story colonial with fading yellow paint in the quiet suburb of Hartfield, Massachusetts. For 15 years, Raymond Mercer had lived there alone. Neighbors described him as polite but reserved, the kind of man who would shovel your driveway after a snowstorm but never stay for coffee. He maintained his lawn meticulously, paid his taxes on time, worked as an IT consultant mostly from home. Nothing about Raymond suggested anything unusual. Sarah Kelly had been 17 when she disappeared on October 12, 2018. A junior at Hartfield High School with auburn hair and a bright smile that dominated her yearbook photo. She'd been walking home from track practice, taking her usual route through Pinewood Park, a shortcut many students used. Her mother reported her missing at 8:42 p.m. that evening when Sarah didn't return for dinner. The initial search was thorough. Police combed the park, volunteers posted flyers. Local news ran her story nightly for weeks, but as with many missing persons cases, the trail went cold. Sarah had seemingly vanished without a trace. No cell phone activity after 4:17 p.m. that day. No witnesses who saw anything unusual. No unexplained withdrawals from her bank account, just absence. Life in Hartfield continued. Seasons changed. The community mourned but slowly, reluctantly moved forward. Sandra Kelly, Sarah's mother, refused to sell their home, convinced her daughter would someday return. She kept Sarah's room exactly as it had been, posters of indie bands on the walls, college brochures still spread across the desk, a half-finished English essay still saved on her laptop. "I feel her sometimes," Sandra would tell anyone who would listen. "Like she's close by, like she's still in Hartfield." The investigation might have remained dormant if not for a water leak in July 2023, nearly 5 years after Sarah's disappearance. Raymond Mercer's basement had flooded after heavy rainfall, prompting him to call a local plumber, Frank Donahue. Frank arrived to find Mercer agitated, insisting he could only work in certain sections of the basement while Mercer supervised. "Something felt off," Frank would later testify. "He had this area behind an old shelf unit that he kept steering me away from. Said it was just storage, but he got real nervous when I needed to check the wall behind it." Frank finished the job but couldn't shake his unease. That evening, he mentioned it to his brother-in-law, Detective Paul Sawyer. It might have been nothing, just the quirks of a private homeowner, but in a town still haunted by an unsolved disappearance, details like these didn't go unnoticed. Detective Sawyer ran Raymond Mercer's name through their system. No priors, not even a parking ticket, but something interesting did come up. Mercer had moved to Hartfield in 2003 from Burlington, Vermont. And in Burlington, there had been an unsolved case involving a college student who disappeared while jogging in 2002. The case had gone cold, no body, no suspects. On July 18, 2023, Detectives Sawyer and Martinez knocked on Raymond Mercer's door with a warrant to search his property. The pretext was a routine follow-up on several unsolved cases in the area. Raymond greeted them calmly, offering coffee as they explained their presence. He consented to the search without hesitation, showing them through his immaculate home. "Take all the time you need," he told them, his voice steady. "I understand you're just doing your job." The main floor revealed nothing unusual. Family photos showed Raymond with elderly parents who had since passed away. His office contained 3 computer monitors and technical manuals. The kitchen was clean, organized. Everything seemed normal until they reached the basement door. "This area still has some water damage," Raymond explained, suddenly looking at his watch. "I have a video conference in 20 minutes. Perhaps we could schedule another time for this part." Something in his demeanor shifted, a slight tremor in his left hand, eyes that wouldn't quite meet theirs. Detective Martinez noticed Raymond's breathing had quickened. "This won't take long," Martinez assured him, opening the door. The basement appeared ordinary at first glance: concrete floors, washing machine, storage shelves. But along the far wall, behind a large shelving unit that seemed unusually difficult to move, they discovered a second door. A door with 3 deadbolts, all locked from the outside. "What's this area?" Sawyer asked. "Just storage," Raymond replied, his voice now a whisper. "Very old house. Probably was a coal room once." When they asked for the key, Raymond claimed to have lost it years ago. It took them 15 minutes to get through the locks. When the door finally swung open, the smell hit them first, musty, damp, with something underneath that both detectives recognized from previous crime scenes. The room was approximately 15 by 20 feet, and around its perimeter stood mattresses, 12 of them, propped vertically against the walls. Old, stained mattresses with strange, dark patches and tiers, each one concealing a section of wall behind it. "Sir," Detective Sawyer said, turning to Raymond, "I'm going to need you to wait upstairs with Officer Jenkins while we examine this room." Raymond's face had gone completely blank. He nodded slowly, following the officer like a sleepwalker. The first mattress they pulled away revealed nothing unusual, just concrete wall. The second the same, but behind the third mattress they found it, a metal chain bolted to the wall, ending in a padded fabric restraint, clearly handmade, lined with what appeared to be soft flannel to prevent chafing. Behind the fourth mattress, another chain, and another. And sewn into the corner of that mattress, in neat, precise stitching, "She still dreams here." The room contained no windows, a small drain in the center of the floor, a plastic bucket, a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling, and on a small table, a journal. Inside, they found detailed entries dating back 20 years, all written in meticulous handwriting. Not names, but rather what Raymond called his dreamers, 12 in total. Women ranging in age from 16 to 23 who had disappeared from communities across New England over 2 decades. One entry from October 2018 read, "Dreamer 9 has beautiful auburn hair. She talks about her mother often, says she wants to study journalism. I tell her she'll be part of an important story someday." Behind the 7th mattress, they found a small cavity in the wall. Inside, a charm bracelet with a track shoe pendant. Sarah Kelly's mother had described this exact bracelet in her initial missing person report. Raymond Mercer confessed that night. He described how he would watch young women for weeks, learning their routines, how he would approach them with a request for help, directions, assistance with packages, before using chloroform to render them unconscious, how he believed he was collecting dreams by keeping them in his basement. "I never wanted to hurt them," he insisted. "I just wanted to keep their dreams safe." When asked where the women were now, Raymond became confused. "They're still dreaming," he said. "I just moved them somewhere safer." Excavation began in the wooded area behind Mercer's property the next day. By the end of the week, they had recovered 3 sets of remains. Over the following month, that number would grow to 8. Sarah Kelly was not among them. To this day, Sandra Kelly keeps her daughter's room untouched. The search for the remaining victims continues, but Raymond Mercer now refuses to speak about the case. He sits in his cell at Bridgewater State Hospital, reportedly spending hours staring at the blank walls and whispering to himself. Sometimes, the guards report, he appears to be having conversations with people who aren't there. And sometimes, late at night, they hear him say, "She's still dreaming. She's closer than you think." Sarah Kelly's whereabouts remain unknown. The case remains open. The house at 471 Maple Grove Lane stands empty now, a silent memorial to lives interrupted. Local officials have discussed demolishing it, but each time the proposal comes up for vote, it mysteriously fails to pass. Some nights, residents of Hartfield report seeing a light in the basement window, a light that shouldn't be possible since the electricity was disconnected years ago. Just a reflection, police say when called. But those who drive past the abandoned house at night don't linger. They accelerate slightly, eyes forward, trying not to think about the basement that was lined with mattresses. Trying not to wonder who might still be dreaming there. Crime 3, under the lowest shelf, hidden beneath stacked cans, was a wooden hatch with a rusted padlock. When opened, the space below held only a mirror facing upward, and a single red bow. The reflection in the glass wasn't the ceiling, it was a face, eyes open, smiling. The house at 327 Maple Lane had belonged to Alina Whitman for 37 years. A retired elementary school teacher, Alina was known in the small town of Greenfield, Massachusetts for her meticulous garden and the chocolate chip cookies she baked for the neighborhood children every Sunday. At 72, she lived alone since her husband Robert passed away from heart failure in 2018. Their only daughter, Diane, lived 3 hours away in Connecticut with her husband and 2 teenage sons. Alina's daily routine rarely varied. She woke at 6:15 a.m., made a cup of Earl Grey tea, read the morning paper, and tended to her garden before the summer heat intensified. Neighbors often saw her collecting mail at precisely 2:30 p.m., dressed impeccably even for this simple task. She attended book club meetings at the local library every Wednesday evening. She never missed a single one in 15 years. Until August 27, 2023. When Alina didn't arrive for the discussion of Donna Tartt's The Secret History, her friend Margaret Holloway thought little of it. Perhaps Alina had caught a summer cold or was visiting her daughter without mentioning it. But when Alina also missed Sunday service the following weekend, something she had never done while physically able, Margaret's concern deepened enough to warrant a visit to 327 Maple Lane. "I knocked 3 times," Margaret later told Detective James Reed. "The curtains were drawn, which wasn't like Alina at all. She loved natural light. I used the spare key she'd given me years ago for emergencies." The house was unnaturally quiet. No classical music playing softly from the vintage record player in the living room. No scent of freshly baked goods or garden flowers in decorative vases. Instead, there was a subtle, unfamiliar odor that Margaret couldn't quite identify. "Everything looked perfectly normal at first glance," she continued. "No sign of forced entry or struggle. The bed was made with hospital corners, just as Alina always did. Her reading glasses sat on her nightstand beside a half-finished novel. Her purse hung on the hook by the front door. Her car was in the garage." Alina Whitman had seemingly vanished without taking any personal belongings. Detective Reed and his partner, Detective Sophia Chen, conducted a thorough search of the property. They found Alina's cell phone charging in the kitchen. Her medication was in the bathroom cabinet, doses seemingly not missed. Her calendar showed no appointments for the day she disappeared. We were just about to wrap up the initial sweep when Detective Chen noticed something odd about the pantry, Reed recalled in his case notes. The canned goods on the bottom shelf were arranged differently than the rest of Alina's meticulously organized home. When they moved the cans aside, they discovered the wooden hatch with its rusted padlock. The key was nowhere to be found. After obtaining the necessary warrant, they cut through the padlock. What they found was not what anyone expected. The space below was shallow, barely 2 feet deep, and contained only a mirror positioned to face upward and a child's red hair bow placed carefully beside it. The mirror was what got to me, Detective Chen later admitted. It was positioned so that when you looked down into the space, you'd see your own face staring back, but there was something off about the reflection, like it wasn't quite right. Forensic teams found traces of blood on the underside of the hatch, DNA tests later confirming it belonged to Alina. The red bow yielded no fingerprints, but microscopic examination revealed it wasn't new. It had been stored somewhere for decades, the fabric showing minute signs of age despite being well preserved. Diane Whitman arrived the next day, visibly shaken but composed. Mom never mentioned any hidden compartment in the house, she insisted. Dad renovated the kitchen in the 90s, but he never said anything about putting in a whatever that is. When shown the red bow, however, Diane's composure cracked. That can't be. That's my bow from when I was 6 or 7. Mom kept my childhood things in boxes in the attic. Why would that be down there? The investigation expanded beyond Alina's disappearance when detectives discovered a disturbing connection. 3 other elderly residents of Greenfield had gone missing over the past decade, all within a 5-mile radius of Maple Lane. All were between the ages of 70 and 75. All lived alone. None were ever found. What initially seemed like a straightforward missing persons case transformed into something far more sinister. Detective Reed discovered that Robert Whitman hadn't always been the kindly retired postal worker neighbors remembered. In his youth, he'd been investigated, though never charged, in connection with the disappearance of a young woman in 1977. The case had gone cold, the woman never found. We can't rule out that Robert may have had secrets Alina discovered after his death, Reed theorized. Perhaps she began looking into his past and someone didn't want her to find something. 3 weeks into the investigation, Margaret Holloway made another unsettling discovery while helping Diane sort through Alina's belongings. In a shoebox filled with old photographs, they found a faded Polaroid from 1978. It showed a young Robert Whitman standing next to a pantry under construction, the same pantry that now contained the hidden hatch. On the back of the photo, written in faded blue ink, "The foundation is set, she'll never leave now." The search of the Whitman property intensified. Ground-penetrating radar revealed no anomalies beneath the house or in the garden Alina had so lovingly tended. The investigation hit one dead end after another. Then came the letter. 4 months after Alina's disappearance, Detective Reed received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a typed message. Check the mirror again. Some reflections show more than faces. Reed and Chen returned to 327 Maple Lane, which had remained unoccupied since Aliner's disappearance. The hatch and mirror were still in evidence lockup, but something compelled them to re-examine the space beneath the pantry floor. "We almost missed it," Chen said. "The bottom of the compartment had been made to look like ordinary concrete, but when we tapped it, there was an echo. Someone had created a false bottom." Beneath this second layer was a narrow crawl space that extended toward the basement. And in this space, they found a journal wrapped in plastic, preserved from moisture and time. The journal belonged to Robert Whitman, spanning entries from 1977 to 2017. The final entry, dated just 3 months before his death, read, "Aliner suspects nothing all these years, and she's never asked why I insisted on keeping the pantry layout during renovations. The others are safe where I left them. My collection stays hidden as it should, but I worry about what happens after I'm gone. Will my secrets stay buried?" As detectives continued reading through the journal, they discovered Robert had been leading a double life for decades. The entries detailed his collection, 4 women who had rejected him in his youth, whom he later stalked and abducted after meticulous planning. He described how he kept mementos of each in the hidden compartment, including the red bow that had belonged not to Diane, but to his first victim, whose daughter had worn it the day Robert first saw her. The mirror, according to the journal, was his way of watching from beyond death, a disturbing symbolic gesture rather than anything supernatural. But the most chilling revelation came in the final pages. Robert had suspected Aliner had begun to notice subtle clues about his past. He wrote about considering adding her to the collection, but his declining health had prevented him from carrying out this plan. The journal made no mention of an accomplice, yet Aliner had disappeared 10 months after Robert's death. To this day, Aliner Whitman remains missing. The bodies of Robert's other victims have never been found, despite extensive searches of all properties connected to him. Diane has sold the house at 327 Maple Lane, which remains vacant, its value plummeting due to its grim history. Detective Reed still keeps the case file on his desk. Sometimes, late at night when the office is empty, he takes out the evidence photos of the mirror found beneath the pantry floor. "I know it's just glass and silver backing," he tells new detectives who ask about the case. "But sometimes when I look at it, I can't shake the feeling that someone is looking back." The most disturbing question remains unanswered. If Robert Whitman died before Aliner disappeared, who locked the hatch with her blood on it? Who placed the mirror and the bow in that shallow space for police to find? And why, when forensic specialists examined the mirror more closely, did they discover a fingerprint on its back surface that matched neither Robert nor Aliner, but instead matched an unknown sample from a 1979 crime scene 3 states away? The pantry hatch at 327 Maple Lane has been sealed by order of the Greenfield Police Department, but some locks, once opened, can never truly be closed again. Crime 4, delicate handwriting looped along the inner stitching over 20 names, all female. One was underlined twice with a small heart beside it. When traced, it matched a girl reported missing 6 years earlier. The curtain rod had grooves scratched into it, like from fingernails. In the quiet town of Millhaven, Oregon, the Lambert house had remained untouched for almost a decade. Built in the 1940s, it sat at the end of Oakwood Drive, partially obscured by overgrown maple trees. The previous owner, Franklin Lambert, had passed away in 2013, leaving no known relatives. His estate had been tied up in legal complications until 2019, when the county finally auctioned the property. Sarah Nichols was 28 when she purchased the Lambert house. A freelance graphic designer from Portland, she had been looking for somewhere quiet to work, away from the city's constant noise. The Lambert house, with its peeling paint and neglected garden, seemed perfect, a project that would occupy her hands while her mind wandered through creative concepts. "I love the windows," Sarah would later tell Detective James Harmon. "They were these tall, elegant things. Even with the grime of years, you could tell they were special. The sunlight came through them like honey." The curtains had been the first thing Sarah planned to replace, heavy velvet drapes in a deep burgundy that blocked most of the natural light from entering the spacious living room. They smelled of dust and time, of spaces untouched and unaired. When Sarah pulled them down that first weekend, she noticed they felt unusually heavy, the fabric thicker than expected. It was only when she started cutting them apart for disposal that she found the stitching along the hem. At first, she thought it was a manufacturer's mark or perhaps a previous owner's indication of size. But as she looked closer, she realized they were names. Women's names, written in a precise, elegant script with blue-black ink that had faded slightly with time. Amanda, Jessica, Tanya, Eloise, Margaret. The list continued, covering almost the entire hem of both curtain panels, 23 names in total. Most were simply written, but one, Heather, was underlined twice, with a small heart drawn beside it. "I thought it was odd," Sarah would recall, "but not necessarily sinister. People do strange things. I figured maybe the previous owner had sewn these himself and was commemorating friends or family." Sarah had photographed the names out of curiosity before disposing of the curtains. She might have forgotten about them entirely if not for her neighbor, 81-year-old Gladys Finch, who brought over a welcome basket 3 days after Sarah moved in. "You're living in old Lambert's place," Gladys had said, her eyes narrowing slightly as she handed over homemade cookies. "Did they tell you anything about him?" Franklin Lambert had moved to Millhaven in 1998, Gladys explained. A quiet man in his 50s who kept to himself. He worked from home as some kind of freelance accountant. Pleasant enough when encountered at the local grocery store, but never one to attend community events or invite neighbors over. "There was something about him," Gladys said, lowering her voice despite there being no one else around to hear. "Nothing you could point to exactly, just a feeling. The way he would look at young women in town, like he was memorizing them." What might have remained an odd anecdote took a turn when Sarah mentioned the names in the curtain hem. Gladys's face paled. She asked to see the photographs Sarah had taken. "Heather Dawson," Gladys whispered, pointing to the underlined name. "She went missing in 2007. Young girl, only 19, worked at the diner on Main Street. They never found her." That evening, Sarah called the Millhaven Police Department. Detective James Harmon arrived the next morning, a tall man with deep lines around his eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. He examined the photographs of the names with a neutral expression that nonetheless couldn't hide his interest. "And you said there were marks on the curtain rod?" he asked, voice carefully even. Sarah led him to the garage where she'd stored the old curtain hardware. The metal rod, nearly 7 feet long, had distinct grooves on its underside, parallel lines that could indeed have been made by fingernails dragging across the surface. "I'll need to take these," Detective Harmon said, "and I'd like to have a team come through the house if that's all right with you." Within hours, the Lambert house was filled with officers and crime scene technicians. They started in the living room but soon expanded their search to the entire property. Sarah watched from her car parked across the street, a growing sense of unreality washing over her. This was supposed to be her fresh start, her quiet retreat. The search of the house initially yielded nothing remarkable until they reached the basement. Behind a false wall constructed with surprising skill, they discovered a small room. It contained only a chair bolted to the floor, a small table, and a camera tripod. The walls had been soundproofed. The room itself wasn't the most disturbing part, Detective Harmon would later confide to Sarah after she'd been cleared of any involvement. It was what we found hidden in the foundation beneath it. A lockbox containing 23 driver's licenses and personal items, pieces of jewelry, locks of hair, small notebooks filled with what appeared to be journal entries. Each item carefully preserved and labeled with a name, each name corresponding to the list sewn into the curtain hem. As the investigation expanded, the truth about Franklin Lambert began to emerge. Before moving to Millhaven, he had lived in 7 different towns across 3 states over a 20-year period. In each location, young women had disappeared, cases that remained unsolved, with minimal evidence and no bodies ever recovered. Heather Dawson had been his only victim in Millhaven, or at least the only one they could confirm. She had last been seen leaving her shift at the diner on a rainy Tuesday evening in April 2007. Security footage from a gas station showed her walking along Main Street, Lambert's dark sedan slowing down beside her. "We believe he offered her a ride home because of the rain," Detective Harmon explained. "A simple act that would seem kind, not threatening." The investigation revealed that Lambert had been meticulous in covering his tracks. He maintained normal routines, paid his bills on time, and kept his lawn mowed to community standards. His internet search history, recovered from old hard drives found in the attic, showed research into forensic techniques and police investigation procedures. "He studied us," Harmon said. "He knew exactly what we would look for and how to avoid leaving evidence." The most chilling discovery came 3 months into the investigation, when officers searching a storage unit rented under a false name found a collection of videotapes. They contained footage of the women whose names were sewn into the curtains, taken through windows from parked cars in grocery store aisles. Hours of surveillance, cataloging their habits, their routines, their most vulnerable moments. And yet, despite all this evidence, the case remained frustratingly incomplete. No bodies were ever found. Lambert had taken that secret to his grave. The families of the missing women were left with confirmation of what they had long feared, but without the closure that finding their loved ones might have brought. Sarah eventually sold the house, unable to live with the knowledge of what had happened there. The county purchased it and demolished the structure, creating a small memorial garden in its place. Detective Harmon retired the following year, the Lambert case's last major investigation. At his retirement party, he admitted to a colleague that he still dreamed about those names sewn into the burgundy hem, 23 women whose final moments remained known only to a man who could no longer be questioned. "The curtains were the strangest part," he said. "Why keep that record? Why risk having those names where someone might find them?" The answer came in a letter delivered to the Millhaven Police Department a year after Lambert's death, having been held by his attorney with instructions for delayed delivery. The single page contained only 1 paragraph. "The names are their voices. I sewed them where they could speak but not be heard, where they could be present but invisible, where they could watch over me as I watched over them. No one ever looks at the inside of a hem. No one ever really looks at anything." In Millhaven today, the garden where the Lambert house once stood blooms with 23 different varieties of flowers. Each spring, fresh blossoms emerge, their colors vivid against the green grass. The residents tend to them carefully, ensuring that nothing dies, that nothing is forgotten. And if you visit in the early evening, when the light turns golden and shadows stretch long across the ground, you might notice how the wind moves through the garden, like fingers running along fabric, like whispers trying to form words, like names being spoken after a long silence. Crime 5, every few feet the boards gave a little, just enough to suggest something below. When pried open, each cavity revealed a cloth-wrapped item, a pacifier, a tooth, a broken phone, a braid. At the center of the room, a single photo lay face down, on the back, buried for her. The house at 327 Maple Avenue had stood for 87 years in the quiet town of Fallbrook, Massachusetts. From the outside, the Victorian two-story looked like all the others on the block. Weathered white clapboard siding, navy shutters, a wraparound porch where previous owners had watched summer thunderstorms roll in across the Berkshire foothills. The kind of home where generations of families had marked heights on door frames and celebrated Thanksgivings around oak dining tables. In the fall of 2023, Martin Landry bought the house at auction. A quiet man in his early 40s with salt and pepper hair and careful hands, Martin had moved to Fallbrook after his divorce finalized in Boston. He'd been drawn to the home's history, its solidity. The realtor had mentioned some deferred maintenance issues, but Martin saw potential where others might have seen problems. The previous owner was an elderly woman named Margaret Wellen, the realtor had told him, flipping through paperwork. Lived here for 30 years by herself after her husband passed. No children. House has been empty about 8 months since she died. Estate sale covered the back taxes, but nobody wanted the place itself. Martin had nodded, only half listening as he ran his hands along the living room's oak wainscoting. The house felt right to him, peaceful, a place where he could start over. For the first 3 months, Martin focused on making the upstairs livable, repainting the main bedroom, updating the bathroom, replacing water-stained ceiling tiles. The renovation became his therapy, a methodical way to rebuild his life alongside the house. He'd work during the day at the local library's archives department, then come home and lose himself in home improvement tasks until he was tired enough to sleep without thinking about his former life. It wasn't until January, when the New England winter had settled into a frigid routine, that Martin decided to tackle the living room floor. The wide oak planks were beautiful but uneven in places, with subtle dips that made furniture wobble. He'd planned to sand and refinish them, perhaps level the subfloor beneath if necessary. On a Sunday morning with snow falling silently outside the bay windows, Martin began carefully prying up the first board. The wood resisted, then gave way with an audible sigh. Martin paused, frowning at what he saw beneath. Instead of the expected joists and subfloor, there was a small hollow space. And nestled inside, wrapped in yellowed tissue paper, lay a child's pacifier, blue plastic with a yellow duck painted on the shield. Martin sat back on his heels, turning the object in his fingers, an odd place for such a thing. Perhaps a family pet had hidden it there decades ago, he reasoned, or a child had pushed it through a now-repaired crack in the floorboards. Puzzled but not alarmed, he set it aside and continued working. By noon, Martin had uncovered 5 more hollows, each containing a cloth-wrapped item. A baby tooth, yellowed with age, a Nokia flip phone with its screen shattered, a braid of blonde hair tied with a faded ribbon, a child's hair clip shaped like a butterfly, a tarnished silver locket with no picture inside. With each discovery, a growing unease settled over Martin. These weren't random lost items. Someone had deliberately created these cavities, carefully placed these objects, then sealed them away. The precision of it all, each item wrapped, each cavity spaced exactly 4 feet apart, suggested ritual intention. When Martin reached the center of the room, he found the largest hollow yet. Inside lay a photograph, face down on the bare earth beneath the house. With trembling fingers, he lifted it, turning it over slowly. The image showed a young woman, perhaps 25, smiling at the camera on what looked like a sunny day at a lake. The colors had the slightly oversaturated quality of late 1990s film development. On the back, written in neat, pressed handwriting, "Buried for her." Martin didn't sleep that night. He lay awake in his upstairs bedroom, listening to the wind rattle the old windows, his mind racing through possibilities. Children's items, a woman's photo, buried for her. The phrase kept repeating in his thoughts, taking on darker meanings with each iteration. The next morning, Martin called in sick to work for the first time since he'd started at the library. Instead, he walked to the Fallbrook Historical Society, housed in the town's original courthouse. The director, Eleanor Sims, had helped him research architectural details for his home several times before. Margaret Welland, Eleanor repeated when Martin asked about the previous owner. Oh yes, poor Margaret became quite a recluse in her later years. She and her husband Edward moved here in the early 90s. He was a high school chemistry teacher, died of a heart attack around 2000. They never had children of their own, though I believe Margaret had a sister who died young. Did anyone else live in the house? Martin asked, trying to keep his voice casual. Maybe before the Wellands. Eleanor tapped at her computer. Let me see. Before the Wellands, the house belonged to the Caldwell family from 1976 to 1993. James and Patricia Caldwell. They had a daughter, if I recall. A daughter, Martin felt his heart beat faster. Yes, and what was her name? Sarah, I think. Sarah Caldwell. Eleanor peered at Martin over her reading glasses. Is there something specific you're looking for, Martin? You seem troubled. Martin hesitated, then reached into his pocket and placed the photograph on Eleanor's desk. I found this in my house, under the floorboards, along with some children's items. Eleanor studied the photograph, her expression shifting from curiosity to something more guarded. This is Sarah Caldwell, she said finally. Where exactly did you find this, Martin? By that afternoon, Detective Laura Mendez of the Fallbrook Police Department stood in Martin's living room, examining the collection of items laid out on a drop cloth. 2 officers had already begun the process of removing the remaining floorboards, revealing more hollows, more items, a girl's hair elastic, a pair of plastic earrings shaped like strawberries, a friendship bracelet woven from embroidery floss, a small diary with a broken lock. The Caldwell case, Detective Mendez said quietly, almost to herself. I wasn't on the force then, but everyone in town knows about it. What case? Martin asked, his voice tight. Detective Mendez looked at him appraisingly, as if deciding how much to share. Sarah Caldwell went missing in June of 1993. She was 17, beautiful girl, honor student, heading to Cornell that fall. One day she went to Lake Massasoit with friends and never came home. The last confirmed sighting was her walking back toward town alone around sunset. The case went cold after a few months. Martin gestured at the items, and these. Personal effects looks like things that would have belonged to a teenage girl in the early 90s. She picked up the broken Nokia. This is newer though. The Caldwells had moved away by then. Over the next week, the Fallbrook police methodically dismantled the living room floor. 17 hollows in total, 17 items. Forensics teams photographed, bagged, and cataloged each discovery. Ground-penetrating radar was brought in to scan beneath the foundation, but found nothing more sinister than old pipes and natural soil deposits. The case reopened, spreading through town like ripples in still water. Old rumors resurfaced. James Caldwell had sold the house abruptly after his daughter's disappearance, moving with his wife to Arizona. They divorced a year later. Edward Welland, the chemistry teacher who bought the house, had taught Sarah in her junior year. Some remembered him as quiet, dedicated. Others recalled moments of inappropriate attention towards certain female students. Patricia Caldwell, now in her 70s, flew in from Phoenix. Martin watched from his porch as she walked slowly up the driveway, supported by a middle-aged woman who must have been a relative. When Patricia saw the excavated living room through the open door, she collapsed to her knees, a wail escaping her that seemed to carry 30 years of compressed grief. She always loved this room, Patricia told Detective Mendez later, her voice hollow. The light in the afternoons, she'd do her homework on the floor, papers spread out all around her. Sarah was so methodical about everything. As winter melted into spring, the investigation continued without resolution. The items yielded no usable DNA beyond confirming some belonged to Sarah. Edward Welland had been dead for over 20 years, Margaret for nearly one. Without bodies, without confessions, there was only circumstantial evidence, items under floorboards, suggesting obsession but proving little else. Martin thought often about moving, starting over somewhere else again, but something kept him in the house. Not morbid fascination, but a strange sense of responsibility. Someone needed to remember what had happened here, to acknowledge the weight of secrets the house had carried for so long. In April, as Martin planted new rose bushes along the front walkway, an elderly man with stooped shoulders stopped to watch from the sidewalk. "You're doing good work on the place," the man said eventually. "Looks better than it has in decades." Martin nodded his thanks, studying the stranger's face. "Did you know the house from before?" "Knew all the houses on this street, delivered mail here for 42 years before I retired." The man leaned on his cane. "I knew Sarah Caldwell, sweet girl, always waiting for the mail, especially in her last year. Letters from colleges, she'd say, but sometimes there were others." Martin's hands stilled in the dirt. Other letters. Handwritten ones, no return address. She'd grab those quick, hide them from her folks. The old mailman's eyes grew distant. "After she disappeared, I always wondered. Never said anything to the police back then. Who'd suspect the chemistry teacher, respected man, wife who doted on him? But I saw how he looked at Sarah when they'd pass on the street, and I delivered his letters." "You're sure they were from him?" Martin asked quietly. The old man nodded slowly. His handwriting was distinctive. Saw it enough times on school forms my own kids brought home. Precise, pressed hard into the paper. The same hand that wrote "buried for her" on that photograph they found. Before the man turned to continue his walk, he looked back at the house with profound sadness. Some secrets stay buried even without graves, but the earth remembers, the house remembers. That night, Martin stood in his partially rebuilt living room, looking down at the new subfloor where the hollows had been. Tomorrow, fresh oak planks would arrive, and the room would begin its transformation again. The walls had been repainted, the trim restored. To a casual observer, no trace would remain of what had been discovered. But Martin knew the house would always hold its secrets, just as Fallbrook held its collective memory of a girl who went to the lake one summer day and never returned. Some cases remain eternally open, eternally questioning. In the silence of old houses, in the spaces beneath floorboards, in the items we leave behind, these are the fragments that outlast us, that tell our stories when we no longer can. After finishing the living room renovation, Martin finally hung pictures on the walls, not to cover what had happened, but to acknowledge new life continuing in old spaces. And in the front yard where the new roses were beginning to bud, he placed a small stone marker nearly flush with the ground. It bore no name, just a simple inscription, "Remembered here." The town of Fallbrook continued its quiet existence. Seasons changed. People walked past 327 Maple Avenue, some knowing its history, others oblivious. But the earth remembered, the house remembered, and now so did Martin. Crime 6, walls, ceiling, even the tools covered in children's sketches. Most showed a tall, bent figure beside a bed. In the corner, written in block letters, "I told her to stay out." The hammer on the workbench had hair in the grip and a cracked pink bracelet looped around the handle. When Detective Marion Collins stepped into Walter Green's backyard shed on that cool October morning in 2017, she knew something wasn't right. The air hung thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, a sweetness that didn't belong. The shed stood at the far end of a well-kept yard in Millbrook, Pennsylvania, a town where nothing much ever happened, until now. Walter Green, 42, was an unremarkable man. Medium height, thinning brown hair, the kind of face you'd forget within minutes of meeting him. He'd lived in Millbrook his entire life, working as a night custodian at Millbrook Elementary for the past 15 years. Walter was quiet but polite, always nodding hello to neighbors, but rarely stopping to chat. He lived alone in the modest two-bedroom house he'd inherited from his mother, who had passed away 5 years earlier. He kept to himself, said Diane Powell, who lived next door for over a decade. I'd see him gardening sometimes, very particular about his lawn. The only time I really spoke with him was when he brought over my newspaper if it landed in his yard. No one in Millbrook knew much about Walter's personal life. He had no known romantic relationships, no close friends that anyone could name. His colleagues at the school described him as reliable, meticulous, but distant. He was the kind of person who existed on the periphery of the community, present but never fully seen. The first indication that something was wrong came when 8-year-old Lily Bennett failed to return home from school on Thursday, September 28. Lily lived 3 blocks from Walter's house and attended Millbrook Elementary. She was a bright, creative child who loved to draw and was known for giving her artwork to teachers and neighbors. Her mother, Sarah Bennett, reported her missing at 4:30 p.m. when Lily hadn't returned home by her usual time. She always came straight home, Sarah told police through tears. Always, she knew not to go anywhere else without asking. The initial search focused on the school and surrounding areas. Volunteers combed the neighborhoods, calling Lily's name. Police interviewed her classmates, teachers, and other school staff. Walter Green was questioned as part of the routine investigation of all school employees, but nothing about his interview raised any red flags. He stated he had been cleaning the gymnasium when school let out and hadn't seen Lily that day. 3 days passed with no sign of the missing girl. The community grew increasingly anxious. Parents began driving their children to school. Teachers reported empty seats as some families kept their children home altogether. Then came the anonymous call. "You should check Walter Green's shed," a muffled voice told the police tip line operator. "He doesn't like people in there." When asked for more information, the caller simply hung up. The call couldn't be traced. With nothing else to go on, Detective Collins and her partner obtained a warrant to search Walter Green's property. Walter appeared surprised but cooperative when they arrived, saying, "Look wherever you need to. I hope you find that little girl soon." The house revealed nothing unusual, clean, organized, with few personal touches. It wasn't until they entered the backyard that Walter's demeanor changed. "The shed's just my workshop," he said, fidgeting with his keys. "It's a mess in there, nothing to see." Detective Collins noticed how his eyes wouldn't meet hers, how his left hand trembled slightly as he pointed toward the house. "Maybe we should go back inside. I could make some coffee." When Collins insisted on seeing the shed, Walter reluctantly produced a key from his pocket. "I keep it locked because of neighborhood kids," he explained. "They get into everything if you let them." The lock clicked open and Walter pushed the door inward. He stayed outside as Collins entered, her flashlight beam cutting through the dimness. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary workshop, pegboard with tools, a workbench, shelves with paint cans and garden supplies. But as Collins's eyes adjusted to the low light, she saw the drawings, hundreds of them pinned and taped to every available surface. Children's drawings, all similar in style but varying in detail. Stick figures with disproportionately large heads, houses with smoke curling from chimneys, and in many, a tall, hunched figure standing near a small bed. "Mr. Green," Collins called out, her voice steady despite the unease creeping up her spine. "Where did all these drawings come from?" Walter remained in the doorway, his face now drained of color. "The kids at school," he said softly. "They give them to me. I like to keep them." Collins moved deeper into the shed, her flashlight beam landing on a corner where several drawings had been arranged in a neat row. Unlike the others, these appeared to be drawn by the same hand, the same style, the same green crayon used for the tall figure. Beneath them, written in block capitals, "I told her to stay out." As Collins turned to question Walter, her light caught something on the workbench, a hammer partially hidden beneath a cloth. What made her reach for it wasn't the tool itself, but the flash of pink visible near the handle. When she lifted it, she found strands of blonde hair caught in the grip and a child's bracelet, cracked plastic beads on an elastic band looped around the handle. Walter Green was still standing in the doorway, but something had changed in his posture. The nervous, accommodating man was gone, his shoulders straightened, his head tilted at an odd angle. "I told her not to come in here," he said, his voice suddenly lower, almost a different voice entirely. "This is my special place. No one is allowed." In the hours that followed, as forensic teams descended on the property, the full horror of what had happened began to emerge. Hidden beneath a false bottom in a storage chest were Lily's shoes and backpack. Under the floorboards, investigators found a child's drawing, unmistakably Lily's work, showing a shed with a stick figure trapped inside. Walter Green was taken into custody without resistance. During questioning, he alternated between periods of silence and streams of disjointed statements. "She wanted to see my collection," he said at one point. "She said her drawing should be with the others, but this is my place. My mother always said I needed my own place." As investigators pieced together Walter's history, they discovered that his mother, Elena Green, had been a domineering presence in his life. Former neighbors recalled how she would lock young Walter in a garden shed as punishment, sometimes for hours. After her death, Walter had converted that same shed into his workshop. The search for Lily Bennett continued for 2 more days until cadaver dogs led police to a freshly disturbed area of soil behind Walter's garage. There, wrapped in a blue tarp, they found Lily's body. Medical examination determined she had died from blunt force trauma to the head. The hammer from the shed was confirmed as the murder weapon. Time of death was estimated to be within hours of her disappearance from school. What haunted the investigators most was the timeline they reconstructed. Walter had been cleaning the school hallways when he overheard Lily telling a friend she knew where the drawing man lived and wanted to give him a special picture she'd made. After school, she had apparently gone directly to Walter's house. Security camera footage from a house 2 doors down caught a glimpse of a small figure in a red jacket, Lily's, walking toward Walter's home at 3:15 p.m. When questioned about the anonymous tip that led police to his shed, Walter insisted he knew nothing about it. To this day, the caller's identity remains unknown. In the aftermath, the community of Millbrook struggled to reconcile the Walter Green they thought they knew with the man who had committed such a horrific crime. The elementary school established a memorial garden for Lily. Her artwork was framed and displayed in the main hallway, bright, hopeful drawings so different from those found in Walter's shed. Most disturbing to investigators was the realization that Walter had been collecting children's drawings for years, creating a curated gallery of innocence in the very space where his own had been shattered as a child. The drawings with the tall, bent figure, which appeared in dozens of the collected works, were eventually determined to be Walter's own creations, mimicking a child's style but revealing something darker beneath. The shed was his world, Detective Collins would later testify at trial. A place where time stood still, where childhood trauma and adult compulsion blended together until he couldn't separate them anymore. Walter Green was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. He never expressed remorse, maintaining that he was simply protecting his special place from intrusion. Sarah Bennett, Lily's mother, moved away from Millbrook the following year, unable to bear the constant reminders of her daughter. Before leaving, she donated Lily's art supplies to the school with a simple request that children be encouraged to draw freely, to express themselves without fear. The shed behind Walter Green's house was demolished. In its place, neighbors planted a small garden that blooms with pink and purple flowers each spring. No one speaks of what happened there, but occasionally, new drawings appear tucked among the flowers, childish renderings of butterflies and smiling suns, silent tributes to a little girl who loved to share her art with the world. To this day, some Millbrook residents report feeling a chill when passing that corner of Walter's old property. Not because they believe in ghosts, but because they remember how easily darkness can hide behind an ordinary facade, how the monster no one sees is the most dangerous of all. Crime 7, it didn't turn. At first glance, it looked decorative until they pulled the cord beside it. A hatch dropped open, revealing stairs that led upward into a space no one had ever entered. Inside, a mattress, chains, and a diary sealed in wax. The final page was blank except for the words, "She climbed out." The Grayson family had lived in the Victorian house on 417 Maple Street in Riverdale, Ohio for nearly 3 decades. Martin and Alina, now in their 60s, were known throughout the neighborhood as the quiet couple who kept their lawn immaculate and their business private. Their daughter, Abigail, had moved away to college 12 years earlier and rarely returned home. When questioned later, neighbors would describe the Graysons as perfectly normal, though some admitted they couldn't recall ever being invited inside the home. On April 16, 2023, a Sunday afternoon like any other, Alina Grayson called 911. Her voice was unnaturally calm as she reported that her husband had fallen down the stairs and wasn't breathing. When paramedics arrived 7 minutes later, they found Martin Grayson at the bottom of the main staircase, his neck broken. Alina sat in an armchair nearby, hands folded in her lap, staring at nothing in particular. Detective Sarah Holloway was called to the scene when one of the paramedics noticed peculiarities about the fall. The angle was wrong. The body position didn't match a typical stair accident, and most troubling, there were small bruises on Martin's wrists that appeared to predate his death by several days. "Mrs. Grayson," Detective Holloway said gently, "could you walk me through what happened this afternoon?" Alina's face remained placid, almost serene. Martin was in the attic. He's always in the attic. He must have lost his balance on the way down. And what was he doing in the attic? Alina blinked slowly, checking on things. He always checks on things. A search of the main attic space revealed a meticulously organized storage area with labeled boxes dating back to the 1990s. Nothing seemed unusual until Officer Jenkins noticed a small built-in closet in the corner. Inside, mounted to the ceiling, was an antique brass doorknob. "It's just decorative," Alina said from the doorway, startling the officers who hadn't heard her approach. "This house has all sorts of architectural oddities." But when Officer Jenkins tugged experimentally on a thin cord hanging beside the knob, they heard a click. The ceiling panel, camouflaged to match the closet ceiling, swung downward, revealing a set of narrow pull-down stairs. "Mrs. Grayson," Detective Holloway said, "what's up there?" For the first time, Alina's composure faltered. "Storage," she whispered, "just more storage." What they found was a space approximately 10 by 12 feet with a sloped ceiling following the roof line. Unlike the organized main attic, this hidden room contained only a thin mattress on the floor, a bucket in the corner, and a small shelf bolted to the wall. Most disturbing were the metal chains attached to one wall, with restraints that could fit human wrists and ankles. On the shelf sat a leather-bound journal, its cover sealed with red wax. When forensics carefully opened it, they discovered daily entries dating back nearly 7 years, written in a delicate feminine hand. The entries began with rage and desperation, but gradually shifted to a detached acceptance, and finally to something resembling strategic planning. The final entry, dated just 3 days before Martin's death, contained only 5 words. She climbed out. The page after it had been torn out. As investigators dug deeper, they discovered that the Graysons' daughter, Abigail, hadn't actually been seen by anyone in the past 7 years. The girl who occasionally visited, whom neighbors assumed was Abigail, was actually a young woman named Jessica Winters, who had been reported missing from her college campus in 2016. Dental records confirmed that Jessica had been living as Abigail during brief, carefully supervised visits to the Grayson home. What remained unclear was whether Alina had been a willing participant in her husband's crimes or another victim. When questioned about Jessica, Alina's only response was, she was smarter than the others. A search of the property's backyard revealed 3 sets of remains buried beneath the immaculate rose garden. All young women who had disappeared from nearby towns between 2010 and 2015, all with similar physical characteristics to Jessica Winters. The diary provided insights into Jessica's captivity and gradual plan for escape. Entries suggested she had slowly gained Martin's trust over years, convincing him she had accepted her fate as his substitute daughter. She had learned to pick the locks on her restraints. She had memorized the house's routines. What the diary didn't explain was how Jessica had managed to turn the tables on her captor. The forensic evidence suggested Martin hadn't fallen, he had been pushed. But Jessica wasn't in the house when police arrived, and Alina claimed no knowledge of her whereabouts. "She climbed out," Alina repeated when pressed, her eyes vacant. 6 weeks into the investigation, Detective Holloway received an unmarked envelope at the station. Inside was a torn diary page and a bus ticket stub from Ohio to Oregon. The page contained a single paragraph. "I'm not coming back, don't look for me. You won't find the others because there are no others now." She knew all along. She brought him the tea every night and watched him drink it. She left the cord where I could reach it when he was asleep. 7 years she waited for someone strong enough to finish what she couldn't. Tell her I'm sorry it took so long. Alina Grayson was charged as an accessory to kidnapping and false imprisonment, but the prosecutor's case was complicated by evidence suggesting she had been Martin's first victim decades earlier, psychologically if not physically imprisoned. During rare moments of clarity in custody, Alina would only say, "Some doors aren't meant to be opened. Some are only meant for escape." Jessica Winters was never found. Security footage from the Riverdale bus station showed a young woman matching her description boarding a westbound bus on the morning of Martin's death, carrying nothing but a backpack. The ticket was purchased with cash. Her trail disappeared in Portland. The house on Maple Street remains empty, its reputation now forever tainted. Realtors struggle to explain the peculiar feature in the attic closet, a doorknob on the ceiling that turns only one way. Sometimes, late at night, neighbors report seeing a light in the attic window. Police investigations find nothing but an empty room with chains that seem to have been moved slightly, as though someone had returned to ensure they would never be used again. The case of the Grayson house remains officially open, with Jessica Winters still listed as a missing person. Detective Holloway keeps the torn diary page in her desk drawer, a reminder that sometimes survival requires becoming someone else entirely. And somewhere perhaps a young woman who no longer answers to the name Jessica or Abigail lives quietly, always choosing homes without attics, always sleeping with her door open, always keeping the key to every lock within reach. Because she knows better than most that some doors are designed to keep people in, not out, and that sometimes the most dangerous prison is the one built by someone who loves you. Crime ate, it crunched when moved. Cut open, the mattress spilled dozens of prosthetic eyes, blue, brown, some cracked, most painted. On each iris, numbers had been etched by hand. One had a message burned into the sclera: "She sees you when you sleep." Detective Michael Lawson stared at the collection of glass eyes scattered across the bedroom floor of apartment 4B. The tenant, Alina Weber, had been missing for 6 days. Her sister, Caroline, had finally convinced the building manager to let them in after Alina missed their weekly Sunday dinner and stopped answering calls. Alina was 32, an optician's assistant who had moved to the small town of Millfield, Massachusetts, 4 years ago. She'd grown up in Burlington, Vermont, the daughter of a high school English teacher and a nurse. Her childhood had been unremarkable: good grades, a few close friends, a fondness for photography. Nothing in her past suggested she would end up at the center of this peculiar scene. "Who does this?" Caroline whispered, her face pale as she stood in the doorway. Ellie was normal, quiet, maybe a little reserved, but normal. Alina's apartment told a different story. The walls of her bedroom were painted a stark white, but they weren't bare. Hundreds of small photographs had been meticulously arranged in concentric circles around her bed. Each photo featured a single eye: human eyes, animal eyes, doll eyes, eyes from magazines and advertisements. Some were circled in red marker. "Did you know about this?" Lawson asked gently. Caroline shook her head slowly. "I've never been here before. She always came to visit me in Boston." Eliner's disappearance might have been easily dismissed as an adult who chose to leave her life behind, except for what they found in her bedroom. The mattress with its unsettling contents, the wall of eyes, and the small leather-bound journal tucked beneath her pillow. The first entry was dated 3 years earlier. I saw him again today, standing across the street from the shop. He thinks I don't notice, but I do. I always do. Some people can feel when they're being watched, but I can feel when I'm watching someone else. It's like a current passing from my eyes to theirs. He doesn't know this about me yet. The entries continued, becoming increasingly focused on someone Alina referred to only as the Watcher. She described seeing him in various locations around town, outside her workplace, at the grocery store, sitting 3 tables away at her favorite cafe, but she never described his appearance, only the sensation of watching him watch her. "We need to find this man," Lawson said, carefully turning pages in the journal. "He might know where she is." The investigation revealed that Alina was well liked at her job at Millfield Vision Center, though colleagues described her as intensely private. She worked primarily in the lab, crafting and adjusting lenses, rarely interacting with customers unless specifically requested. She had a way with prosthetics, her supervisor, Dr. Harriet Chen, explained. "We do custom glass eyes for patients who have lost an eye." Alina had an artistic touch with the painting. She could match iris patterns perfectly. Patients loved her work. When asked if anything unusual had happened recently, Dr. Chen hesitated. "About 2 months ago, Alina came to me concerned about inventory discrepancies. Some of our materials were missing, mostly the glass blanks we use for prosthetics. I assumed it was a clerical error, but Alina seemed disturbed by it. The next breakthrough came 3 days later, when Officer Jenkins discovered a pattern in the numbers etched into the glass eyes from Alina's mattress. Their dates, Jenkins explained, laying out the evidence, and coordinates. Each eye has a date and a location in Millfield. The oldest date was from 3 years ago, the same time Alina began writing about the Watcher in her journal. The most recent was just 1 week before her disappearance. When police visited the locations corresponding to the coordinates, they found nothing unusual. Just ordinary places around town, street corners, park benches, bus stops. Their observation points, Lawson realized, places where she could watch without being noticed. But what or who was she watching? The answer came unexpectedly when Caroline brought in a photo album from their childhood. Among the typical family photos was a newspaper clipping from 20 years earlier when Alina was 12. The headline read, "Local Girl Escapes Attempted Abduction." According to the article, young Alina had been approached by a man who tried to lure her into his car. She managed to run away, but not before getting a good look at him. Alina's description had been detailed enough for police to create a composite sketch, but the man was never caught. "She never talked about it," Caroline said quietly. "Our parents moved us to a different neighborhood, and it was like it never happened. But sometimes I'd find her staring out the window, especially at night." The composite sketch from 20 years ago showed a man in his 30s with distinctive heterochromia, 1 blue eye and 1 brown. "That's why she focused on eyes," Lawson murmured. "She was looking for him." The investigation took a disturbing turn when they discovered that Alina had been systematically photographing men who matched the general description of her childhood assailant. The pictures on her wall weren't random, they were surveillance. Each circled photograph represented a man she had eliminated as a suspect after close observation. The journal entries from the past month revealed her growing certainty that she had found the Watcher, the same man who had tried to abduct her as a child. He's aged, but those eyes haven't changed. One blue, one brown. He doesn't recognize me. How could he? I was a child, but I recognize him. He lives in the gray house on Maple Street now. I've been watching him watch other children. History repeats, but not this time. The last entry was dated the day before she disappeared. Tonight I become the watcher of the watcher. He won't hurt anyone else. When police arrived at the gray house on Maple Street, they found it empty. The owner, Thomas Grayson, a solitary man who had moved to Millfield 3 years earlier, was nowhere to be found. Neighbors described him as polite but distant. He worked from home as a software developer and rarely entertained visitors. A search of the house revealed a hidden room in the basement. The walls were lined with photographs, hundreds of images of children from around town, including several of Alina as a 12-year-old. In the center of the room was a chair facing multiple monitors connected to hidden cameras positioned throughout Millfield's parks and playgrounds. But of Thomas Grayson and Alina Weber, there was no trace. 2 weeks later, a hiker found a man's wallet in the woods 5 miles outside of town. It belonged to Thomas Grayson. Police organized a search of the area and discovered a shallow grave. The body was Grayson's. The medical examiner determined he had been dead for approximately 3 weeks, right around the time Alina disappeared. The cause of death was a single puncture wound to the heart, likely from a long, thin instrument. Among the evidence collected from the grave was a single glass eye, one blue, one brown, placed carefully on Grayson's chest. Alina Weber was never found. Some in town whispered that she had finally found peace, having confronted and eliminated the demon from her childhood. Others suggested a darker possibility, that in her vigilance she had become something else entirely, something that still watched from the shadows. The glass eyes from her mattress were catalogued as evidence and stored in the Millfield Police Department's evidence room. Occasionally, officers would report hearing a faint crunching sound coming from the sealed box, as if the eyes were shifting position on their own. Detective Lawson sometimes found himself looking over his shoulder on quiet nights, unable to shake the feeling of being observed. When he mentioned this to Caroline during a follow-up interview months later, she simply nodded and said, "Ellie always had a way of seeing things others missed." The message burned into the final glass eye, "She sees you when you sleep," remained unexplained. But throughout Millfield, people began drawing their curtains more tightly at night, uncomfortable with the sensation of being watched by eyes that were no longer there. Crime 9, the first day Lisa Garner moved into the old Victorian on Maple Street, she felt something was off about the dining room. The proportions seemed wrong, the room too shallow for the exterior dimensions of the house. But between unpacking boxes and starting her new job at Springfield Memorial Hospital, the 32-year-old nurse had dismissed the thought. Old houses settle. They play tricks on the eye. October in Massachusetts had always been Lisa's favorite season. The crisp New England air, leaves turning amber and crimson, and longer nights that invited introspection. She'd purchased the 3-bedroom home at a surprisingly affordable price, a foreclosure that had sat empty for 18 months after the previous owners, the Camerons, had abruptly moved out of state. The real estate agent mentioned they'd left so quickly they'd abandoned furniture and personal items. The bank had cleared most of it, but Lisa still found occasional reminders of the family who'd lived there before. A child's drawing tucked behind a radiator, a single earring under the bathroom sink, a grocery list magnetized to the back of the refrigerator. Lisa's sister Megan had helped her move in, staying that first weekend before returning to Boston. "This place gives me the creeps," Megan had said on her last night, sitting at the kitchen table nursing a glass of wine. "It feels like the walls are watching." Lisa had laughed it off. "All houses have their quirks, I'll make it mine." 3 weeks later, Lisa decided to redecorate the dining room. The wallpaper, faded yellow with an intricate pattern of vines and birds, was peeling at the corners. As she began to strip it away, she noticed something unusual. The wall didn't sound hollow when she knocked on it. It sounded dense, like there was something behind it. By mid-afternoon, Lisa had removed most of the wallpaper from the north-facing wall. What she discovered made her step back in confusion. Perfectly aligned with the real windows on the adjacent wall, but covered by what appeared to be a false wall of drywall, were a second set of windows. When she carefully removed a section of the false wall, the sealed windows were revealed with handprints on the inside. Smudged against the glass, someone had written backwards, "She watches from behind the frame." Lisa called the police. Officer Daniel Reed arrived 40 minutes later. A veteran of the Springfield Police Department for 15 years, Reed had seen his share of strange calls, but the hidden windows piqued his interest. "How long have you been living here, Miss Garner?" he asked, examining the handprints on the glass. "About a month," Lisa replied, hugging herself against a sudden chill. "I had no idea these were here." Officer Reed made some notes in his pad. The previous owners were the Camerons, correct, left suddenly about a year and a half ago. "That's what the real estate agent told me." Reed nodded slowly. "I remember them, nice family, 2 kids. The husband, Robert, worked at the university. The wife, Caroline, I think, was an artist, painted landscapes." He shined his flashlight along the edges of the window frame. "These windows face the neighbor's brick wall. They'd never get any light." "Why would someone seal up windows and build a false wall?" Lisa asked. "I'm not sure," Reed admitted, "but I'm going to find out who the contractor was." That evening, Lisa couldn't sleep. The house creaked and settled, normal noises that had never bothered her before, but now seemed loaded with meaning. She kept thinking about those handprints, small, almost childlike, and the backward message. Had one of the Cameron children written it, but why? The next day, Lisa called her sister. "I'm coming over," Megan insisted after hearing about the discovery. While waiting for Megan to arrive from Boston, Lisa decided to introduce herself to her neighbors, the Hendersons. Perhaps they knew something about the Camerons or the renovations to the house. Eleanor Henderson, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and kind eyes, invited Lisa in for tea. "Oh, the Camerons," she said, her expression clouding. "They were very private. Caroline was friendly at first, always waving from the garden, but after a while she stopped coming outside much. The children, too." "Do you know why they moved so suddenly?" Lisa asked. Eleanor hesitated. There were rumors. The youngest child, Emma, started telling stories at school, disturbing stories about someone living in their walls. She shook her head. "Children have active imaginations, of course." "Did you ever notice any construction being done on the house?" Lisa pressed. "Yes, now that you mention it. About 2 years before they left, Robert hired someone to do some work, said they were fixing water damage." When Megan arrived that afternoon, the sisters decided to investigate further. The false wall had been built with surprising craftsmanship. It wasn't a haphazard job. "Look at this," Megan said, pointing to the base of the wall where they'd removed more drywall. "There's a small gap here, maybe an inch high, running the length of the wall, like a vent." Lisa knelt down to look. Why would someone need ventilation behind a false wall? That evening, the sisters contacted the real estate company again, requesting more information about the house's history before the Camerons. The agent, eager to avoid any legal complications, agreed to send over what records they had. The email arrived the next morning. The house had been built in 1897 by a prominent doctor, Harold Whittaker. It had changed hands numerous times over the decades. Before the Camerons purchased it in 2017, it had been owned by an elderly woman named Ruth Matheson, who had lived there for 42 years. She had died in the house in 2016 at the age of 94. "Nothing unusual here," Megan said, scrolling through the records. "Wait, look at this." She pointed to a notation in the property records from 1964, when Ruth Matheson and her husband first purchased the home. There had been an extensive renovation, including removal of servant quarters and reconfiguration of second floor. "Servant quarters," Lisa frowned. "This house isn't that big." "Old Victorian homes sometimes had small rooms for live-in help," Megan explained, "but they're usually clearly part of the floor plan." Over the next few days, Lisa continued removing the false wall, careful to document everything with photographs. Behind it lay a narrow corridor, about 2 feet wide, running the length of the dining room. The windows she discovered looked into this corridor, not outside. And on the opposite wall of the corridor were what appeared to be viewing ports, small, hinged openings that would allow someone in the corridor to look into the dining room unobserved. Officer Reed returned with building permits filed by Robert Cameron. He hired a contractor named Marcus Shepard in 2019 to do work on the dining room and master bedroom. The permits mention structural repairs, but nothing about false walls. Reed had also tracked down a former colleague of Robert Cameron from the university. Professor Cameron was researching historical architecture, specifically hidden spaces in Victorian homes, priest holes, servant passages, that sort of thing. His colleague thought he was becoming obsessed with the subject. As they talked, Lisa's phone rang. It was Alina Henderson from next door. "Lisa, I remembered something. Before the Camerons left, I overheard an argument. Caroline was shouting at Robert. She said, 'We have to tell someone she's not imaginary.' I thought she was talking about their daughter's imaginary friend." That night, alone in the house again after Megan and Officer Reed had left, Lisa sat at her kitchen table, poring over the information they'd gathered. The house seemed to close in around her, its silence no longer comforting but expectant, as if it were holding its breath. A soft thud from upstairs made her freeze. Lisa told herself it was nothing, old houses settle. But then came another sound, like fingernails lightly dragging across a wall. She grabbed her phone, ready to call for help, when her kitchen lights flickered once, twice, and then went out. In the darkness, Lisa heard a soft whisper that seemed to come from inside the walls themselves. "She watches from behind the frame." 2 days later, Officer Reed stood in Lisa's empty kitchen, looking troubled. Lisa Garner had packed a bag and checked into a hotel the night before, after calling 911 about an intruder. When officers had arrived, they'd found no one, just Lisa, clearly terrified, insisting she'd heard someone in the walls. This morning, she hadn't shown up for her shift at the hospital. Her car was still in the driveway. Her purse and phone were on the kitchen counter. Reed walked through the dining room where the false wall had been partially dismantled. Construction dust covered the floor. The hidden corridor stood exposed, its narrow confines revealing something the officer hadn't noticed before. Scratches on the inside of the viewing ports, as if someone had tried to claw their way out. As Reed shone his flashlight deeper into the corridor, he noticed something else, fresh footprints in the dust, too small to be Lisa's. They led deeper into the house, into sections of the wall they hadn't yet opened. Following the trail of footprints, Reed found himself at the entrance to the attic. The door was slightly ajar. As he pushed it open, his flashlight beam caught something unexpected, a makeshift living space. A thin mattress lay in the corner. Empty food containers were stacked neatly by a water jug. On the wall, dozens of drawings depicted the same scene, a family eating dinner, viewed as if through a window. And in the center of the room, a journal. The first page bore a single name, Ruth Matheson. The last entry was dated the previous day. The new one has discovered my windows. She knows I'm here now. Like the others, she'll try to expose me. I can't allow that. This house has been my home for 60 years, ever since Mother and Father sealed me in. I've watched generations come and go through my little windows. This is my house. They are my families, and I keep them safe until they try to leave me. The search for Lisa Garner continues. The hidden passages in the old Victorian on Maple Street have been fully exposed, revealing an elaborate network of corridors and viewing ports throughout the house. But of Ruth Matheson, who according to official records died in 2016, or Lisa Garner, there is no sign. Only the handprints remain, pressed against glass that separates the world of the living from the spaces in between. Story 10, the aged envelope bore the marks of time, its corners tinged with a faded yellow hue, yet the stamp upon it gleamed with freshness, a recent dispatch. With cautious hands, the detective unfolded its contents. Enclosed within was a solitary sheet of paper bearing a message typed in a hurried, uneven script. I am sorry for what I did. A subtle dampness clung to the paper, carrying with it the faint scent of iron. It was then that the detective's gaze fell upon a reddish smear adorning the lower edge of the page, a stain that bore no resemblance to ink. Detective Sarah Morgan, donning her protective gloves, delicately placed the letter into an evidence bag, her movements precise and seasoned. The forensic analysis swiftly confirmed her suspicions. The crimson mark was indeed human blood, its DNA a match to an unsolved homicide that had long cast a shadow over the department. The victim was Rebecca Warren, a young journalist, discovered in her apartment with multiple stab wounds, her laptop missing, her notes strewn about in disarray, hinting at a connection between the attack and the story she had been fervently pursuing. Despite exhaustive efforts, the case had grown cold until this cryptic letter arrived at the precinct, simply addressed to Homicide Division. The scant fingerprints left on the paper and envelope offered little insight, mere smudges indicating the sender's precaution with gloves. The postmark, however, emerged as a promising light after months of stagnation. Gathering her team in the dimly lit briefing room, Detective Morgan directed their attention to the letter pinned at the heart of a cluttered board adorned with crime scene snapshots, timelines, and fruitless suspect profiles. "This changes everything," she declared to the somber assembly. "Our perpetrator shows remorse." Detective James Chen, her steadfast partner since the case's inception, scrutinized the letter thoughtfully. "Or perhaps they wish to deceive us into believing so," he countered. The blood could be a facade, a macabre game of manipulation. The forensics team traced the unique typewriter impression to a model long out of production, a rarity but not beyond reach. They embarked on a quest, reaching out to antique aficionados and collectors across the region. Simultaneously, the detectives delved into Rebecca's life, learning of her fearless pursuit of truth and justice. Her investigation into a prominent family embroiled in local politics unveiled a web of deceit and greed following the patriarch's demise. Interviews with Rebecca's boyfriend, Michael Barnes, unveiled a shift in demeanor upon the letter's discovery, subtle signs of unease and trepidation. Rebecca spoke of being followed, he confessed. I dismissed it as paranoia fueled by her relentless pursuit of the truth. I should have paid heed. As the team probed this new light, a second letter materialized, bearing the same typewritten message tainted with blood. This time the confession delved deeper. She possessed knowledge that endangered the family, their inheritance, the truth behind the patriarch's demise. I never intended for it to escalate. The trail led to the mansion of the deceased patriarch, where suspicions fell upon the eldest son, Richard. His collection of antiquities included vintage typewriters, triggering a rehearsed explanation that rang hollow. A breakthrough occurred when microscopic fibers on the envelopes aligned with custom stationery exclusive to the family's youngest daughter, Eleanor. Questioned under scrutiny, Eleanor unveiled Richard's request to borrow her stationery weeks prior. A search of Richard's abode unveiled a clandestine chamber brimming with incriminating evidence, clippings about Rebecca, surveillance materials, and a vintage typewriter akin to that of the letters. DNA analysis confirmed the blood as Rebecca's. Unexpectedly, a financial link between Richard and Michael surfaced, revealing substantial transactions preceding Rebecca's demise. Confronted, Michael's resolve crumbled. Rebecca had unearthed evidence of Richard's treachery in hastening his father's demise for inheritance, he confessed. I divulged her findings, believing it would deter her pursuit. I never fathomed it would end in her death. Eleanor's revelation of a concealed recording sealed Richard's fate, a damning conversation between him and Michael plotting Rebecca's silence forever. Richard's arrest in a bid to flee marked the culmination of justice. The trial unfolded with Richard vehemently proclaiming innocence, shifting blame onto Michael, yet the weight of evidence was insurmountable. A swift verdict of guilt was returned by the jury. As Richard faced the consequences of his actions in shackles, Detective Morgan approached Rebecca's grief-stricken parents in the courtroom, the specter of closure lingering in the air. The blood-stained letters stood as silent testaments in evidence storage, a haunting reminder that even the most meticulously orchestrated crimes leave traces, and that the burden of remorse, whether authentic or strategic, can unravel the most meticulously laid plans of a killer. The saga of Rebecca Warren evolved into a pivotal lesson in detective lore, underscoring that breakthroughs often emerge not from advanced forensics, but from the echoes of an ancient typewriter and the weight of guilt bearing down upon a murderer's soul. Story 11: The Mystery of Doppelganger Lane. She gazed at her reflection in the foggy mirror, a sense of unease creeping over her like a shadow in the night. Everything appeared normal at first glance, the familiar contours of her face, the well-worn clothes she had donned countless times before. Yet, as she lingered, a subtle shift in the air, a flicker at the edge of her vision, hinted at something amiss. A movement swift and fleeting caught her off guard. It wasn't her own. She turned away, but her reflection remained motionless, a silent observer in the looking glass, watching her every move with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. Thus began the enigmatic tale of Rebecca Thorne, a tale that would baffle investigators and cast a long shadow over a once peaceful community. Rebecca, a solitary figure in a modest apartment nestled in a serene suburban enclave, was known for her meticulous nature, her penchant for solitude, and her polite interactions with the neighbors. Her days were a symphony of routine and precision, her life unfolding like a well-rehearsed play. No one could have foreseen that she would become entangled in one of the most perplexing mysteries to grace the annals of criminal investigation. The first hints of the inexplicable manifested subtly. Objects in her abode began to shift, rearranged without explanation. A coffee mug perched on a different shelf, books shuffled out of order, her toothbrush inexplicably relocated. Initially dismissed as mere lapses in memory, these peculiar occurrences soon amassed, forming a disquieting pattern that could not be ignored. When Rebecca finally reached out to the authorities after weeks of unsettling disturbances, Detective Marion Shaw was assigned to the case. At first glance, it seemed innocuous, a matter best suited for the realm of mental health services rather than the precinct. No signs of forced entry, no missing items, just a sense of wrongness that permeated the air within Rebecca's home. But it was the incident with the bathroom mirror that shattered any semblance of normalcy. Rebecca recounted the eerie episode with vivid detail, a tale of a reflection that seemed to move of its own accord, of unseen eyes that lingered even in solitude. And this time she had proof, a security camera trained on her front door that captured a moment that defied all reason. The footage revealed a chilling truth, a doppelganger, an exact replica of Rebecca, entering her dwelling with a key while she was miles away at her workplace. Forensic scrutiny confirmed no tampering, no digital sleight of hand. It was as if a shadow of Rebecca had come to life, mirroring her every action with unsettling precision. As the investigation deepened, a disturbing pattern emerged. The doppelganger only materialized during specific absences, therapy sessions, yoga classes, Sunday morning grocery runs, moments meticulously plotted with eerie accuracy. It was not a random intrusion, but a targeted infiltration, a calculated mimicry that bordered on obsession. A breakthrough came when Rebecca mentioned a former colleague, Lily Winters, whose erratic behavior had raised red flags. Lily, fixated on the similarities between herself and Rebecca, had been dismissed from their workplace and had since embarked on a dark path of emulation that culminated in a chilling revelation. Inside Lily's abode, a macabre shrine awaited discovery, a meticulous replica of Rebecca's life, captured in photographs that adorned the walls, in wardrobe duplicates that lined the closet, in makeup brands that mirrored Rebecca's own. Practice videos showcased Lily's gradual transformation, her once clumsy imitations evolving into near-perfect replicas of Rebecca's essence. The motive remained elusive, buried within the cryptic musings of Lily's journals that blurred the lines between reality and obsession. A sinister game was afoot, a game of identity and control that threatened to consume them both. When the authorities closed in on Lily, she vanished without a trace, leaving behind a void that echoed with her malevolent intentions. Rebecca, thrust into protective custody, watched from afar as her life was usurped by a shadow wearing her face, a ghost haunting the corridors of her past. And then came the final revelation, the ultimate betrayal, Rebecca's doppelganger, now living her life, infiltrating her world with chilling precision. Lily had not fled. She had claimed her prize, leaving Rebecca adrift in a sea of uncertainty. The case remains unsolved, a haunting reminder of the fragility of identity and the depths to which obsession can lead. Detective Shaw, haunted by the specter of two women locked in a sinister dance of mirrors, ponders the enigma that lingers, the mystery of Doppelganger Lane, where reality blurs and shadows take on a life of their own. Story 12. She never fancied venturing up there, but the storm's fury had caused a leak in the roof, leaving her with no other option. The attic loomed above her, a realm of forgotten treasures shrouded in dust and cobwebs. Amidst the shadows, tucked away in the farthest corner, rested an antique dollhouse. Its intricate design sent shivers down her spine, each tiny furniture piece meticulously arranged. Yet as she peered closer, a knot twisted in her stomach. The miniature figures inside were not mere dolls. They were delicate, hand-carved replicas of her family. Every figure was placed precisely where they had been downstairs, except for one. The figure meant to represent her was standing by the attic door. Rebecca Morgan tentatively traced her finger along the roof of the dollhouse, feeling the indentation where the tiny wooden figure stood. A chill ran through her, separate from the cold draft whispering through the attic's rafters. The dollhouse's presence was inexplicable. This wasn't her childhood home, but a rental property her family had recently moved into. The unsettling discovery led Rebecca to contact law enforcement in a panic. Officers arrived at the suburban house to find a family gripped by fear, refusing to venture upstairs. Detective Sarah Harmon, the lead investigator, initially brushed off their concerns as a prank or the product of an anxious family adjusting to a new residence. However, the intricate detail of the dollhouse figures caught Detective Harmon's attention. Each tiny replica captured a unique feature of every family member: the father's receding hairline, the son's favorite hoodie, even the mother's small birthmark on her hand. The investigation took a sharp turn when forensic teams uncovered fingerprints on the dollhouse that did not match any family members. More disturbing was the discovery of microscopic cameras hidden in the miniature figure's eyes, all linked to a sophisticated recording system concealed beneath the dollhouse. Analysis of the Morgan family's movements revealed a disturbing pattern. The positions of the figures mirrored not just their current state, but also snapshots from different days, indicating a prolonged observation period. Detective Harmon expressed, "We realized this was no ordinary stalking case. The level of obsession displayed by the perpetrator was unprecedented in criminal psychology." Further investigation unveiled a concealed basement entrance behind a pantry's false wall. Inside, investigators found evidence of someone living there before the Morgans' arrival. Food wrappers, water bottles, and a sleeping bag hinted at an intruder residing beneath the family for weeks. The absence of forced entry puzzled the investigators. Property records revealed the house had sat vacant for nearly a year before the Morgans moved in. The previous owners, an elderly couple, had both passed away within a short span. Their son had managed the estate sale and rental process. Interviews with neighbors yielded little information, except for one elderly woman who occasionally noticed lights in the house during its vacancy. She assumed it was real estate agents showcasing the property, oblivious to the unauthorized resident. A breakthrough emerged through digital forensics. Investigators traced the surveillance system's data transmission to an IP address linked to a small apartment across town. Inside, walls were adorned with photographs of the Morgan family and the house's previous occupants. Journal entries meticulously documented each family member's routines. The most chilling discovery was a workshop filled with partially constructed dollhouses, each representing different homes in the vicinity. The apartment belonged to Martin Wells, the son of the previous homeowners. Financial records revealed mounting debts after his parents' demise. During interrogation, Wells remained eerily composed, citing his need to ensure the new tenants respected his childhood home. His dollhouse creations served as a means to monitor and control both the property and its inhabitants. Psychological evaluation unraveled a tale of possessive delusion. Wells, unable to cope with losing his childhood abode, devised an elaborate system to assert dominance over it. The dollhouse symbolized his possession of the property and those within it. The Morgan family never returned to the house, haunted by the realization that they had been unwittingly observed and manipulated. Wells faced charges of stalking, invasion of privacy, illegal surveillance, and breaking and entering. The case prompted a reevaluation of real estate disclosure laws concerning property histories and agents' responsibilities. The judge, during sentencing, condemned Wells for violating the Morgan family's sense of security and autonomy. What unnerves criminologists is the potential duration of Wells' activities had Rebecca not stumbled upon the dollhouse. Forensic analysis indicated he had covertly resided in homes for years, constructing dollhouses to surveil each family. The Morgans relocated far away, but Rebecca confessed to lingering paranoia, habitually checking closets and crawl spaces. She removed all miniatures from their new home, haunted by the fear that somewhere she remained a pawn in a twisted game of observation. The night falls gently now, enveloping you in its soothing embrace. As you drift into slumber, remember that in the realm of dreams, even the shadows hold no power over your peace. Let the mystery of the night guide you to a realm where no dollhouse can disturb your tranquil rest. Good night, dear listener. Story 13. The apartment lay silent and still, untouched by life for months before the new tenants arrived. As they crossed the threshold, their expectations were low, a layer of dust, perhaps some abandoned remnants of the past. But one door, stubbornly shut, caught their attention. A closet locked tight from within, a mysterious barrier to the secrets it held. When the landlord intervened, forcing the door ajar, there was an anticipation of finding mere clutter or forgotten belongings. Yet what greeted their eyes was far more chilling. The walls bore witness to a struggle, etched with deep, jagged scratches that spoke of desperation and fear. In the corner, an ancient flip phone lay dormant, its screen still illuminated by a single unread message. Detective Morgan Shaw, seasoned in the realm of the macabre, felt a shiver run down her spine at the sight before her. It wasn't the presence of blood or violence that unnerved her, but the silent screams etched into the wood by unknown hands, a silent plea for escape. Call forensics immediately, she instructed her partner, Officer Reed, whose camera clicked in a rhythm of capturing the haunting scene, and gather all records of the previous tenant. The message on the phone was a simple yet ominous declaration: "I know what you did." The landlord, a figure of nervous energy and evasive glances, shared sparse details of the former tenant, a young woman named Emma Caldwell, who had vanished without a trace, leaving behind unpaid rent. "Quiet type, kept to herself," he mumbled, avoiding the closet like a dark specter. "No trouble, just disappeared one day." Forensic analysis unveiled a grim reality: traces of blood embedded within the scratch marks, most belonging to Emma Caldwell, reported missing months ago. Yet there were two DNA samples that defied explanation. One remained a mystery, untraceable in any database. The other belonged to Derek Mercer, a man presumed dead for 2 years following a tragic accident. "This doesn't make sense," Shaw muttered, studying the perplexing findings. Derek Mercer's DNA, once confirmed deceased, now whispered a sinister tale on the closet walls. Emma's apartment painted a portrait of interrupted existence: unopened mail, a cold coffee mug, a meticulously made bed. Her phone records hinted at a sudden cessation of contact with her sister, punctuated by a flood of calls from an unknown number in the days leading to her disappearance. The sister mentioned a boyfriend, Officer Reed relayed. No name, just intense and private. Surveillance footage captured a shadowy figure, concealed beneath a baseball cap, trailing Emma into her sanctuary one fateful night. The pieces began to align when fingerprints belonging to Derek Mercer were discovered on the closet's inner doorknob. He staged his death, Shaw deduced. But why and what ties him to Emma? The enigmatic DNA sample led the investigation to Lynette Porter, another missing soul whose path had intersected with Emma's. Lynette's whereabouts had long been a mystery until her living form was unearthed in a secluded property linked to Mercer's lineage. Shackled in darkness, malnourished and broken, Lynette whispered of forced captivity and relentless control. Mercer's meticulous journals, haunting photographs, and chilling videos painted a portrait of a man consumed by a thirst for dominance and suffering. The manhunt for Mercer spanned borders, his twisted psyche laid bare for scrutiny. His capture at a bus terminal, armed with tools of torment and a ticket to oblivion, marked the end of his reign of terror. She sought her own demise, Mercer calmly professed during interrogation, a smile flickering with unseen malevolence. The trial exposed Mercer's elaborate charade, a carefully crafted plan to elude justice, preying on unsuspecting souls who mirrored his first victim. Emma's fate, sealed within the confines of that closet, remained a haunting enigma. Forensic revelations hinted at her tragic end, clawing at walls that held no salvation. Her final act of defiance echoed in the unread message she had sent to herself, a damning testimony against her captor. The jury's swift verdict of guilt brought a fleeting smile to Mercer's lips, a twisted acknowledgement of his private triumph. At the sentencing, Lynette Porter stood tall, a beacon of resilience in the face of darkness. "His mind dwells in confinement," she declared to the court, "but I choose the light." The legacy of Emma's ordeal reshaped investigative practices, emphasizing the importance of tracing relational webs and scouring rental properties for hidden horrors. Detective Shaw, a silent guardian of the forgotten, preserved the closet door as a stark reminder that evil often lurks not in the crimson stains of violence, but in the silent echoes of a struggle for survival. Story 14. In the heart of the town stood an old library, its fate sealed by the impending wrecking ball. The workers, sweating under the sun, hammered away at the walls and shelves, preparing the building for its final blow. But as fate would have it, one of them stumbled upon a hidden latch nestled within the shadows of a dusty bookshelf. With a hushed click, the ancient wood yielded, revealing a secret passage leading to a forgotten room. The air inside was heavy with the weight of time, untouched by human hands for decades. No sound stirred the stillness, no movement disturbed the silence. The room was bare, save for a solitary chair bolted to the floor in the center, and etched upon the walls a haunting message repeated itself like a whispered plea, "I am still here." Word of the discovery spread like wildfire, reaching the ears of the construction foreman, who wasted no time in summoning the authorities. What had begun as a routine demolition now took a darker turn, drawing the attention of Detective Morgan Walsh, a seasoned investigator with a penchant for the peculiar. Walsh stood at the threshold of the hidden room, his flashlight slicing through the darkness like a sword, revealing the cryptic message that adorned the walls. "Secure the scene," he commanded, his voice carrying through the confined space like a ghostly echo. "No one disturbs a thing until forensics arrives." As the forensic team descended upon the room, a tale as chilling as the icy touch of midnight began to unfold. The library, once owned by the prestigious Harrington family, held secrets darker than the shadows that danced upon its walls. The disappearance of their daughter, Rebecca, cast a long shadow over the family's legacy, a mystery that had haunted the town for years. Hair and fibers found embedded in the chair, traces of blood and skin cells clinging to the scratched walls, the evidence painted a grim picture. The chair, a twisted relic of restraint, bore witness to the struggles of a captive soul, a young woman fighting against the chains of her captivity. Walsh, his curiosity piqued, delved into the annals of the Harrington family history. The timing of the library's donation, the contractor hired by Maxwell Harrington, the patriarch of the family, all threads in a tapestry woven with deceit and betrayal. The revelation that the DNA from the hidden room matched that of Rebecca's hairbrush unraveled the carefully crafted facade of innocence. Rebecca had not fled into the night. She had been ensnared by the very hands of her kin, imprisoned behind the walls of her own legacy. Maxwell Harrington, the puppeteer behind the macabre show, was brought to justice. His confession, a cold and calculated admission of guilt, laid bare the truth that had festered beneath the floorboards for years. The excavation of the hidden room unearthed the remains of a life cut short, a young woman robbed of her future by the cruelty of those she trusted most. The Harrington family, once pillars of the community, now stood in the shadow of their own sins, grappling with the weight of their complicity. As the dust settled and the echoes of the past faded into the ether, the old library stood as a monument to the darkness that lurked beneath the veneer of respectability. Flowers left at its entrance whispered a silent requiem for a lost soul, a reminder that even in the quietest corners, the truth waits patiently to be uncovered. And in the end, it was Rebecca's voice, etched in desperation upon the walls, that ensured her story would never be forgotten, a tale of betrayal, of justice delayed but not denied, echoing through the halls of time. Story 15. In the quiet stillness of the night, a tale unfolded within the walls of a Victorian-era home that Michael and Sarah Klein had intended to make their own. The house, with its ornate woodwork and high ceilings, whispered stories of days long past, drawing the couple in with its charm. It all began with a simple water stain in the master bedroom, a seemingly innocent blemish on the floral wallpaper that caught Sarah's attention. As they peeled back the layers, a hidden narrative emerged, shrouded in mystery and intrigue. Beneath the surface, beyond the faded paisley patterns and striped paper of decades gone by, there was a name Alina Winters repeated endlessly in ink, etched into the wall with a sense of urgency and desperation that sent shivers down their spines. Who was Alina Winters, and why was her name haunting the walls of their new home? The more they delved into the enigma, the more they uncovered a tangled web of secrets that refused to stay buried. A search online revealed a missing persons case from years past, a young woman with dark hair and haunting eyes eerily similar to the previous owner, Margaret Cavendish, who had sold them the house. The pieces of the puzzle seemed to fall into place, yet the picture remained incomplete. Their curiosity soon turned into an all-consuming obsession, leading them down a path of discovery that unearthed hidden truths and unsettling revelations. The walls of their home held not only memories of the past, but also the echoes of a fractured mind struggling to maintain a fragile facade of reality. As they peeled back the layers of deception, they uncovered a hidden space beneath the floorboards, revealing a trove of identities belonging to Alina Winters and Margaret Cavendish, intertwined in a sinister dance of deception and tragedy. Forensic teams descended upon their home, turning it into a scene of investigation as they pieced together the fragments of a decades-old mystery. The truth, when finally revealed, was more chilling than they could have ever imagined. DNA and fingerprints told a tale of a disturbed mind, of a woman named Rebecca Eldridge who had taken on the persona of a leaner, weaving a complex web of identities to mask a dark and twisted reality. The names on the wall became both a confession and a cry for help, a window into a mind teetering on the edge of madness. And as the investigation unfolded, the past reached out with ghostly fingers, revealing the remains of a leaner winters buried beneath the garden, a grim reminder of a life cut short by jealousy and obsession. In the end, justice came belatedly, as the truth emerged from the shadows, exposing the dark heart of a tragedy that had long been concealed. The house, once a sanctuary, now stood as a monument to a crime long forgotten, its walls bearing witness to a tale of loss and redemption that would echo through the ages. And as the night settled over the house, enveloping it in a cloak of mystery and intrigue, Michael and Sarah found themselves haunted by the ghosts of the past, forever intertwined with the secrets hidden within the walls. Story 16. In the beginning there was a faint flicker, a mere blip in the baby monitor's transmission. The mother, caught off guard, attributed it to interference, but as the audio crackled, a soft voice murmured, "Hush now, drift back to sleep." A shiver ran down her spine. Panic gripped her heart as she raced to her son's room, the thud of her heart echoing in the stillness. Yet the crib stood empty, the window sealed shut, the door bolted. The only anomaly was the stuffed rabbit on the floor, its unblinking black eyes fixed on her. Rebecca's screams pierced the night, tearing her throat raw. The neighbors, disturbed by her cries, phoned for help. When the authorities arrived, they found her cradling the rabbit, swaying on the nursery floor. Samuel, her 4-month-old, had vanished into thin air. The investigation yielded little. No signs of forced entry marred the home. The security system remained intact. The baby monitor footage revealed nothing until that eerie voice and static. Puzzled, the investigators pondered how an intruder could spirit away a child without a trace, but leave a stuffed animal behind. Rebecca became a suspect, her strained marriage and struggles with postpartum depression casting shadows of doubt. Her composure under interrogation unsettled the detectives. Whispers swirled through the community. Then a breakthrough emerged. Traces of unfamiliar fibers on the nursery windowsill hinted at an adept intruder scaling the house. Security footage traced a shadowy figure in the night, a boot print in the soil matching military-grade gear. Daniel, returning from a business trip, faced scrutiny. Unusual calluses and a newfound hobby in climbing raised eyebrows. Financial records painted a grim picture: life insurance on Samuel, mysterious calls, a second family unknown to Rebecca. The focus shifted. Digital forensics uncovered a hacked baby monitor, its signal manipulated. The voice hadn't emanated from inside the nursery, but from a remote source. Tracking led to a basement where Samuel was found in the care of Elaine, Daniel's ex-wife. Elaine, haunted by a past loss, surrendered quietly. Daniel's denial crumbled under digital scrutiny. Fibers, boots, encrypted messages all led to him. In court, the chilling audio from the monitor echoed, revealing Daniel's cough in the background. Guilt sealed their fate: kidnapping, conspiracy, endangerment. Rebecca and Samuel sought solace in a new beginning, far from the shadows of the past. The case reshaped abduction investigations, raising awareness of tech vulnerabilities and the need for nursery security. Samuel grew up unaware of his abduction, while Rebecca safeguarded the rabbit, a silent witness to the truth the monitor had silently captured. The monitor spoke the truth in whispers, unveiling a tale no one had foreseen. Story 17. The enigmatic house at the wood's edge. The quiet town nestled among the trees held a secret, one whispered about only in hushed tones, if at all. At the edge of the dense woods loomed a house, forgotten by time and untouched by human hands. Its windows gazed out like darkened eyes, and the porch bore the weight of countless seasons, bending under the burden of neglect. No one laid claim to the house, and its origins remained a mystery lost to the ages. Yet, when a band of intrepid hikers strayed too close to its weathered walls, they stumbled upon a chilling sight. Names, carved deep into the wooden siding, stood out starkly against the worn facade. Etched with purpose, they seemed to serve as ominous warnings to all who dared draw near. Among the list of names, one stood out fresh and untouched by time, a name unfamiliar to the hikers. A name that, when spoken aloud by one of them, sent shivers down their spines. "That's mine," the whispered words hung in the air like a ghostly echo, filling the night with unease. As the call came into the local dispatch, it seemed like a routine trespassing incident at first glance. Mason Wright, the lead hiker who claimed ownership of the unfamiliar name on the house, recounted his discovery to the responding officers. Expecting a simple case of juvenile mischief, the officers ventured into the woods with a sense of curiosity mingled with apprehension. Detective Sarah Keller arrived as darkness descended, her flashlight piercing the shadows to reveal the eerie sight before them. The names, 27 in total, adorned the eastern wall like a macabre memorial. Some had faded with time, barely discernible against the weathered wood, while others remained sharp and distinct as if freshly carved. And at the very bottom, the name Mason Wright stood out, its carving still bearing traces of sawdust, a puzzling enigma in the twilight. "I've never set foot in this place before," Mason declared, his voice tinged with disbelief, mist forming in the chilly night air. "I can't fathom how my name ended up here, etched into this forsaken house." The investigation unfolded with a sense of foreboding, as background checks on each name revealed a haunting truth. Every name on the wall belonged to individuals reported missing over the span of 4 decades, their disappearances shrouded in mystery and sorrow. Some cases had grown cold with time, while others remained open wounds in the hearts of loved ones left behind. Yet a chilling pattern emerged: all the missing persons had vanished while hiking alone in these very woods. Forensic experts meticulously documented the carvings, studying the depths, techniques, and weathering of each name. The oldest inscription, that of Rebecca Hansen, tied back to a decades-old missing persons case, a tale of a young woman who ventured into the forest and never returned, leaving behind only a solitary hiking boot by a babbling stream. Mason's protestations of innocence echoed through the investigation, his steadfast denial of any connection to the house or its grim history resonating with the detectives. His alibi checked out, his background devoid of links to the other names haunting the walls of the abandoned dwelling. Attention shifted to Mason's companions, particularly Emily Chen, the group's photographer whose snapshots inadvertently revealed a haunting presence lurking in the background of several images. A spectral figure, tall and gaunt, obscured by the foliage, seemed to watch over the hikers from the shadows, unseen yet palpably present. A thorough search of the house's interior unveiled a macabre tableau in the basement, personal effects of the missing hikers meticulously arranged on shelves, each item labeled with a name corresponding to the carvings outside. Watches frozen in time, backpacks laden with memories, cameras capturing moments forever lost, wallets holding secrets never shared, all bore silent testament to the eerie connection between the vanished souls and the enigmatic house. As the forensic team combed through the evidence, hidden truths came to light in the form of bloodstains on the basement floor, faint remnants of a grim past that someone had tried to erase. Despite the absence of bodies beneath the house, The cadaver dog's insistent alerts near the dense forest at the rear of the property hinted at darker secrets waiting to be unveiled. Detective Keller observed a shift in Mason's demeanor, his reports of unsettling occurrences escalating with each passing day. Whispers in the night, mysterious footprints leading to his doorstep, phantom figures lingering in the shadows, all painted a portrait of mounting paranoia that cast a pall over the investigation. A breakthrough emerged from the depths of historical records, unearthing the house's previous owner, Victor Blackwood, a reclusive hunter who had vanished without a trace years ago. Descriptions of the elusive figure painted a chilling picture of a gaunt man who seldom ventured into the light, leaving behind a legacy of fear and speculation among the town's residents. Armed with newfound knowledge, Detective Keller spearheaded a search deeper into the surrounding forest, unearthing a network of crude hunting blinds strategically placed along the well-trodden paths. Within one of these blinds lay a journal, a disturbing chronicle of Victor Blackwood's twisted obsessions, detailing his transformation from predator of beasts to hunter of men. The journal's entries grew increasingly macabre, outlining Blackwood's meticulous observations of his unwitting prey, their vulnerabilities, and his sinister methods of selection. Each victim on the wall outside had been meticulously stalked and captured in the hunter's twisted game, a nightmarish tableau of human predation unfolding in the heart of the forest. A manhunt of unprecedented scale swept through the region, helicopters scanning the dense canopy with thermal imaging, tactical teams scouring every nook and cranny for any sign of the elusive hunter-turned-prey. Yet, as the days stretched into weeks, the shadowy figure of Victor Blackwood remained elusive, his presence felt but not seen, a ghost haunting the woods. Mason's sudden disappearance sent ripples of fear through the community, his apartment deserted, his whereabouts unknown. A chilling message etched on his bedroom wall hinted at a sinister turn of events, the hunted becoming the hunter in a deadly game of cat and mouse. During a thorough sweep of Blackwood's house, a hidden chamber revealed a grim tableau, a workshop adorned with woodworking tools, jars of preservatives, and a freshly carved name awaiting its place on the exterior wall. The name, that of the lead forensic technician who had processed the house, sent a chill down Detective Keller's spine, signaling a diabolical turn in the unfolding mystery. Surveillance measures tightened around the abandoned house, cameras and motion sensors poised to catch any sign of the elusive figure that haunted their nightmares. In one fateful night, as the sensors blared an alert, security footage captured the spectral form of Victor Blackwood emerging from the shadows, his presence a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked within the forest. As tactical teams closed in on the figure, a momentary disruption in the surveillance feed obscured their view, only to reveal an empty space where the hunter had stood. The mystery deepened, the enigma of the house at the wood's edge remaining unsolved, its secrets buried deep within the shadows. To this day, the abandoned house stands as a silent sentinel, its walls bearing the weight of forgotten names and lost souls. Mason Wright and the forensic technician vanished without a trace, their fates intertwined with the chilling legacy of Victor Blackwood. The investigation presses on, new resources allocated to unravel the mysteries that shroud the forest in darkness, as the names on the wall become whispered legends among those who dare to tread the haunted paths. Criminal investigators speak in hushed tones of the house that time forgot, its secrets too dark to be spoken aloud. Local hikers steer clear of its looming presence, fearful of adding their names to the grim roster of the forgotten, the names that echo through the night, unheard and unseen, lost to the shadows of the wood's edge. Story 18. The real estate listing made no mention of a basement. The blueprints showed no evidence of it. Yet as the family peeled back the old carpet, they uncovered a hidden door. A weighty, rusted handle awaited them. It took the strength of 3 to pry it open. Stale air, heavy with the scent of damp earth, greeted them as they descended the steps into darkness. Expecting storage, they were met with a solitary chair under a swaying light bulb. And on the wall behind it, a series of photographs of them. The Mercer family settled into the suburban house amidst the winter's early darkness and the skeletal trees of the neighborhood. The 2-story structure, with its worn siding and creaking floors, exuded character, or so they believed. Little did they know the depth of history the house held, and how violently it would intertwine with their present. Detective Sarah Connors arrived at the property with her partner, the crime scene unit already cordoning off the area with fluttering yellow tape. Mrs. Mercer's voice quivered over the phone as she described the unsettling discovery beneath their living room floor. "We must document everything before anyone else ventures down there," Connors directed, slipping on latex gloves with practiced ease. The camera flashes illuminated the stairwell intermittently as the forensic team captured the scene. Wooden steps groaned underfoot. The basement, no larger than a standard bedroom, boasted concrete walls painted a somber gray. A solitary chair was anchored to the floor at the room's center. Above, the stark light bulb cast harsh shadows that danced lazily in an unseen breeze. Yet it was the wall of photographs that demanded attention, 37 pictures meticulously arranged in a timeline. "These date back nearly 4 weeks," remarked Connor's partner, scrutinizing the timestamps on the prints. "Look at this one, Mrs. Mercer napping on the sofa, Mr. Mercer at the table, the children in their rooms." The absence of forced entry, broken windows, or tampered locks perplexed the investigators. The security system had been undisturbed, nothing was missing. Only their privacy had been invaded, along with the sense of security they once held dear. Forensics uncovered multiple fingerprints in the basement, most belonging to previous owners of the house. A checkered history emerged as they delved deeper, with the property changing hands 6 times within a decade, each family fleeing within a year, selling at reduced prices. None had disclosed a basement. "We must speak with every former owner," Connors mandated, flipping through her notes. The case took a sinister turn as they retraced the property's past. Discrepancies in records surfaced, altered blueprints, withdrawn permits, redacted inspection reports. The breakthrough came during an interview with the contractor who had renovated the house 7 years prior. His face paled upon seeing images of the basement. "That room is non-existent," he maintained, his hands trembling. "I stripped that place down to the bare bones. There was no basement, no door, just earth and concrete beneath the living room." Data extracted from a concealed memory card within the light fixture revealed hundreds more images on their evidence boards, not only of the Mercers, but of prior families. Children in slumber, parents in discord, intimate scenes, mundane routines, all captured by an illicit presence. The discovery of audio files in a weatherproof box buried in the basement added a chilling layer. Recordings of conversations held in the house's key areas. The high-quality audio hinted at sophisticated microphones hidden within, though none were found initially. "We must dismantle every wall," ordered Connors, urgency lacing her tone. "Inspect air vents, light fixtures, electrical outlets. The perpetrator has been surveilling these families for years." Beyond the photograph wall, investigators uncovered a narrow passage leading to a monitoring station. A desk, a chair, a laptop linked to wireless cameras, and a journal brimming with meticulous notes on each family that resided in the house. Their routines, their vulnerabilities, their disputes. The script mirrored that of the house's original builder, Edward Kelvin, who had purportedly perished during its construction, a detail that raised suspicion as the inquiry unfolded. The journal's final entries grew erratic, with phrases like "they never look down" and "they never see me" recurring. The last page held a solitary sentence: "The next family arrives tomorrow." Fingerprint analysis confirmed what the detectives had dreaded. Edward Kelvin had never departed from the house he constructed. He had retreated into its concealed recesses, crafting a labyrinth of surveillance points from which to observe the families who believed they dwelt in solitude. The pursuit spanned 3 days, culminating in Kelvin's discovery curled within a crawlspace between the second-floor chambers, his emaciated form suited to navigating the narrow passages he had forged within the walls. His eyes blinked in the glare of the torches, unaccustomed to direct illumination. During interrogation, Kelvin spoke of the families as though they were actors in his private drama. He portrayed his observations with the dispassion of a detached scientist studying specimens. He had not touched them, not thieved from them, not directly intervened in their lives. He had merely watched, recorded, chronicled. "They welcomed me in," he confided to the investigators, his voice soft and rational. "They signed the deeds, they became mine." A mental evaluation concluded Kelvin grappled with severe delusions, perceiving himself as a custodian of the house rather than an interloper. The families were transient lodgers in what he deemed his eternal abode. The Mercer family never returned to the property. Following those before them, they deserted their possessions, salvaging only what fit into suitcases. The house sat deserted as the legal process unfolded. The trial unveiled the intricate web of Kelvin's surveillance network, secret chambers accessible solely through crawlspaces, surveillance points integrated into the very structure, all schemed before the foundation was laid. The house was conceived as an observation mechanism, with its occupants unwitting participants in Kelvin's obsessive documentation. Kelvin remained impassive when the jury delivered their verdict. He had already withdrawn into the recesses of his mind, where he could still navigate unseen through the house's passages, now preserved solely in memory. The property was eventually razed, its grounds excavated and filled. Yet, for the families who had resided there, the violation endured. They were haunted not by what had been taken from them, but by what had lurked unseen, watching, eavesdropping, recording their most intimate moments from within the walls they had trusted for protection. At times, in hushed moments, they found themselves glancing upwards at air vents, light fixtures, the junctures where walls met ceilings, pondering whether they were truly solitary now, pondering if they ever had been. Story 19. It arrived in the post, wrapped in a simple envelope with no return address. A lone brass key weathered by time. The homeowner didn't recognize it, but a sense of déjà vu lingered. Testing it in every lock she owned, no doors yielded. This key didn't belong to her. But when she set it on the coffee table, the ancient grandfather clock in the hallway emitted a solitary, eerie chime despite its years of silence. Sarah Miller alerted the authorities upon discovering the enigmatic key. What appeared as a peculiar mishap soon unfurled into one of the most unsettling criminal inquiries the serene suburban enclave had ever known. The responding officer initially brushed off her worries. A key in the mail, likely a mix-up, he proposed. Yet Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Reluctantly, the officer took the key as evidence, mostly to pacify her, securing it in a small evidence bag that would later hold vital significance in a sprawling investigation. Detective Robert Harmon inherited the case file during the morning briefing. A seasoned investigator with the Special Victims Unit, he possessed a knack for sensing cases that transcended their seemingly innocuous beginnings. The brass key rested on his desk, unassuming yet strangely disquieting. Background checks unveiled Sarah's clean record, a retired high school English teacher, widowed, with adult children residing across the country. Nothing dubious in her financial transactions, call logs, or social presence. She seemed exactly as she professed, an unwitting recipient of something out of the ordinary. Forensic analysis uncovered no fingerprints on the key besides Sarah's. The envelope yielded no clues, bearing only a nondescript postmark from the regional distribution center. No DNA, no trace evidence. The key itself was a standard Schlage, easily obtainable at any hardware store, though worn and at least a few years aged. The breakthrough materialized unexpectedly when Detective Harmon decided to cross-reference the key's unique bidding pattern in the department database. A cold case from 7 years prior had documented an identical key pattern linked to a storage unit where investigators had uncovered blood-stained carpet, cutting tools, and images of unidentified women. The original investigation had stalled due to insufficient evidence to pinpoint a suspect. Harmon dug up the dusty case files. The original detective had retired. The storage unit had been rented under a false identity, paid in cash. Surveillance footage had long been erased. The gathered evidence had produced partial DNA samples, but no matches in any criminal database. The images salvaged from the storage unit portrayed 5 different women, all appearing unconscious. Only 3 had been identified during the initial investigation, all declared missing but never located. Their cases lingered open, marked as suspected homicides without bodies. Sarah Miller couldn't identify any of the women in the photographs. Her anxiety escalated as the investigation progressed, prompting her to fortify her home with new locks and a security system. The question persisted: why had someone dispatched this key to her? Harmon sanctioned a fresh examination of the original evidence using modern methodologies. The partial DNA sample was expanded and scrutinized through genealogical databases. This led to a distant familial match, a second cousin twice removed from the suspect. Tracing back through family trees, investigators homed in on Harold Jenkins, who had resided 2 streets away from Sarah Miller before vanishing around 6 years ago. His current location remained a mystery. Further probing unveiled that Jenkins had been a substitute teacher at the same school where Sarah taught, though their documented interactions were minimal. His employment records displayed sporadic work history, prolonged unexplained gaps, and frequent relocations. A search of his former residence turned up nothing unusual upon inspection. Neighbors described him as reserved, unremarkable, someone who kept to himself, the familiar narrative often associated with predators concealed in plain sight. The pivotal question lingered: why dispatch the key now? Why to Sarah Miller? Harmon speculated it could be a trophy, a caution, or perhaps a ghastly invitation. The hunt for Jenkins escalated. His driver's license had lapsed. No credit card activity. No tax filings. The digital traces individuals typically leave behind were conspicuously absent, hinting at a deliberate effort to remain untraceable. The true horror of the case unfurled as authorities probed a small cabin registered under Jenkins' deceased mother. Beneath the aged wooden floorboards, investigators unearthed a concealed chamber accessible only through a trapdoor. Inside, meticulously arranged shelves held numerous identical brass keys, each tagged with a name and date. 5 keys matched the women from the photographs. The remaining keys, 27 in total, suggested a harrowing implication of additional victims previously unknown to law enforcement. Buried behind the cabin, forensic teams recovered human remains. The excavation continued for weeks as investigators uncovered multiple bodies in various stages of decay. Sarah was provided round-the-clock protection as the nationwide manhunt for Jenkins expanded. Behavioral experts posited that the key symbolized a twisted invitation, Jenkins selecting Sarah as someone to acknowledge his achievements. Dubbed the Keymaster by the media, his moniker spread rapidly across headlines nationwide. Fear gripped the community as residents grappled with how such atrocities could have lurked among them undetected. Tracking dogs traced a scent from the cabin into the surrounding wilderness. Search parties scoured dense woodland areas. Thermal imaging drones surveyed terrain too treacherous for ground teams. The manhunt burgeoned into one of the largest in regional annals. A wildlife photographer trekking through remote woods captured an image resembling Jenkins. The grainy picture depicted a bearded man with hollow eyes carrying a backpack, venturing deeper into the wilderness. Authorities closed in, establishing a perimeter. Tactical units navigated challenging terrain while profilers predicted Jenkins wouldn't surrender. They surmised he might have prepared for this scenario with hidden supplies and escape routes. The final showdown unfolded when a patrol officer encountered Jenkins attempting to cross a river. Rather than surrendering, Jenkins retreated to higher ground, barricading himself in an abandoned fire observation tower. Negotiators sought communication for hours to no avail. When tactical teams breached the tower, they discovered Jenkins deceased from a self-inflicted wound. By his side lay a journal chronicling his crimes, alongside a single brass key mirroring the one Sarah had received. Inside a waterproof container, investigators unearthed additional evidence, including photographs, maps marking burial sites, and personal effects seized from victims, a meticulously preserved record of atrocities spanning close to a decade. The journal's closing entry addressed Sarah directly. "You never noticed me, but I noticed everything about you. The key unlocks nothing because what I wanted to bestow upon you cannot be accessed with metal, only with recognition. Now everyone will remember my name." The subsequent inquiry identified 32 victims in total. Families who had agonized over missing loved ones finally obtained closure, though the solace came with the crushing burden of confirmed tragedy. Sarah never returned to her house, unable to reconcile the proximity of horror to her everyday life. The grandfather clock that had mysteriously chimed was scrutinized and found to contain a discreet wireless receiver Jenkins had been observing, waiting for the instant she received his gift. The case endures as one of the most disconcerting illustrations of predatory behavior shrouded beneath a veneer of normality. Psychological researchers persist in studying Jenkins' writings, seeking insights to detect similar offenders before they strike. And somewhere in an evidence vault, a collection of brass keys sits in silent testimony to lives cut short, each key unlocking nothing, yet revealing a devastating truth about the darkness that sometimes lurks behind unassuming facades. Story 20: The Tale of the Haunting Mask. The quaint costume shop was on the verge of closure, its shelves bare as the last remnants of old inventory were being sold off. Amidst the fading charm of forgotten costumes and faded props, a woman, drawn by an unseen force, reached out and picked up a mask from a dusty shelf. Its features were delicate yet eerily lifelike, sending a shiver down her spine. The cashier, a weathered man with a gaze that seemed to hold secrets of its own, hesitated as she placed the mask on the counter. "That's not ours," he muttered cryptically, a hint of unease in his voice. Perplexed, the woman checked for a tag, but there was none to be found. Shrugging off the odd encounter, she decided to take the mysterious mask home with her. That night, as the moon cast its silvery glow through the window, she stirred from her slumber to a faint sound. A whisper of fabric shifting, a presence in the darkness. The mask, once resting on her dresser, was now perched on her nightstand, its gaze fixed upon her, an unsettling stillness in its lifelike eyes. The woman, known as Catherine Reed, was discovered by her concerned neighbor the following morning. The front door stood slightly ajar, inviting the morning light to spill into the somber interior of her home. What awaited inside was a scene of chilling mystery that would confound investigators for years to come. Detective Morgan arrived at the scene as forensics meticulously documented every detail. The rhythmic click of shutters echoed in the background, a haunting melody to the grim tableau before them. "No signs of forced entry," noted an officer, scribbling in his notepad as the detective's keen eyes swept across the room, absorbing every nuance. A single drawer left ajar, a forgotten water glass with a trace of lipstick on the rim. The scene appeared ordinary, except for the lifeless form of Catherine Reed, her expression frozen in terror, a silent scream etched upon her features. The medical examiner, his demeanor grave, found no immediate cause of death upon initial examination. No visible wounds, no signs of struggle, only the unmistakable imprint of sheer terror etched into Catherine's countenance. "Something frightened her to her very core," the detective murmured, a sense of unease settling over her. Catherine, a respected art appraiser known for her meticulous nature and keen eye for authenticity, lived a life steeped in the world of aesthetics and culture. Colleagues spoke of her uncanny ability to discern the genuine from the counterfeit, a talent that now seemed to have led her down a path of inexplicable tragedy. As the investigation delved deeper, security footage from the costume shop revealed a disturbing anomaly. The cashier's reaction to the mask was genuine bewilderment, prompting a chain of events that would unveil a dark tapestry of enigmatic occurrences. The detective's inquiry led her to the shop owner, a man haunted by the mysteries that lingered within his establishment. With trembling hands, he revealed the mask's origins, linked to a series of deaths shrouded in enigmatic circumstances following the acquisition of items from an eerie estate sale. A breakthrough emerged when forensics uncovered microscopic fibers embedded in Catherine's fingertips, a cryptic clue that hinted at a sinister truth lurking beneath the surface. The fibers, a blend of human hair and an enigmatic organic substance, defied identification, leading the investigation down a shadowy path of ancient rituals and unsolved mysteries. Records of similar deaths spanning decades painted a macabre portrait of a pattern that defied conventional explanation. Each victim had crossed paths with an ominous mask before meeting their untimely demise, their faces forever frozen in the grip of abject horror. A retired detective, a veteran of a past case entwined with the same malevolent force, shared a chilling revelation with Detective Morgan. Inside each mask, hidden behind the lining, were ancient symbols hinting at a ritual of soul transference, a dark legacy that spanned the annals of time. A journal discovered in Catherine's apartment unveiled a harrowing truth, a truth she had uncovered in her final days. The mask was alive, a malevolent entity that sought out those who could discern its true nature. It moved unseen, a silent watcher in the night, claiming lives in a cycle of dread that spanned generations. The investigation culminated in a revelation that sent shivers down the detective's spine. Catherine's demise was not a mere coincidence, but a calculated act of terror that culminated in cardiac arrest induced by sheer fear, a fate too ghastly to comprehend. Surveillance footage from a vigilant neighbor revealed a chilling sight: a figure, wearing a mask eerily reminiscent of Catherine's, departing her home with an otherworldly gait, a macabre mimicry of her movements that defied logic and reason. The missing mask, a harbinger of doom, vanished without a trace, only to resurface months later in a distant vintage shop, its dark allure drawing an unwitting buyer into its sinister web. The cycle continued, its origins shrouded in ancient mysteries that eluded the grasp of mortal comprehension. The detective, haunted by the specter of the mask's malevolent legacy, kept Catherine's journal close at hand, a grim reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the veil of reality. As night descended, she would awaken to a sense of foreboding, a silent whisper in the shadows that reminded her of the mask's unending quest for a new vessel. The mask, a silent sentinel of dread, awaited its next victim, its empty eyes fixated on the living, a hunger that transcended time and reason. And as the world slumbered in blissful ignorance, the mask lay in wait, biding its time until it found its next unwitting host, ushering in a reign of terror that knew no end. Story 21. The old house sat silent, untouched by life for years. Whispers from the neighbors spoke of a young woman who had vanished, leaving behind a void that lingered in the air. When the new tenants crossed the threshold, they were met with a peculiar sight, a bedroom locked from within. With a creak and a push, the door relented, revealing a space frozen in time. Dust danced in the air, settling on untouched surfaces, painting the room in a coat of neglect. The bed stood immaculate, sheets smoothed out as if awaiting a slumber that never came. The mirror reflected back a world devoid of presence, wiped clean of memories. A lone candle stood vigil on the desk, its essence reduced to a mere puddle of wax, a silent witness to the passage of time, frozen in its sorrow. Amidst the stillness, a notebook beckoned, its pages whispering secrets of the past. Detective Morgan delved into the words of Elise Winters, a name lost to the winds of time. Her script danced across the pages, each stroke a testament to a life interrupted. The final entry bore the weight of impending doom, ink pressed deep into the paper, a plea for understanding in a world turned blind. As the detective pondered the mysteries within those pages, the room held its breath, the musty scent of age mingling with a hint of something more, a subtle tang of chemicals that lingered like a ghost. The landlord, a specter of worry etched on his face, stood witness to a truth he could not comprehend. Doors that should have been open remained locked, secrets buried beneath layers of neglect. Elise's life unfurled before the detective's eyes, a paralegal entangled in a web of deceit, unraveling threads that led to the heart of darkness within a prestigious law firm. Whispers of altered documents, hidden truths, and a truth seeker silenced echoed through the room, painting a portrait of a woman caught in the crossfire of power and corruption. The room held its secrets close, revealing little beyond the facade of normalcy. No signs of struggle marred its perfection, no blood stained its innocence. It stood as a shrine to a life interrupted, a puzzle waiting to be solved. As the investigation deepened, hidden truths began to surface. A key, a flash drive, a trail of breadcrumbs leading to a safe deposit box, a treasure trove of damning evidence concealed in the shadows. The truth, once buried, now lay bare, a tapestry of deceit woven by those who thought themselves untouchable. The revelations painted a grim picture, a medication tainted by greed, lives sacrificed on the altar of corporate gain. Elise's voice rang out from the shadows, a beacon of truth in a sea of lies. Her words, her recordings, her legacy, a testament to a life cut short in the pursuit of justice. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place, connecting dots that led to a man of power, a man who thought himself above reproach. Vincent Harriman, a name whispered in darkened corners, stood accused of a crime that shook the foundations of his world. The truth, once buried, now rose like a specter, demanding justice for those who had been silenced. The room, once a prison of silence, now echoed with the cries of the past. Hidden passages, secret tunnels, a labyrinth of deceit woven into the very fabric of reality. The walls bore witness to a crime long concealed, a truth waiting to be uncovered. As the shadows of the past converged with the light of truth, Vincent Harriman's world crumbled. Justice, a silent guardian, stood tall in the face of corruption, demanding retribution for those who had been wronged. Elise's legacy, her final testament, echoed through the empty halls of the old house. Her voice, a whisper in the wind, a reminder of the power of truth in a world shrouded in darkness. The room, a testament to her courage, her sacrifice, stood as a monument to a life lost but not forgotten. The house, a relic of the past, stood as a silent witness to the events that had transpired within its walls. Locals whispered of a presence that lingered, a light that flickered in the darkness, a reminder of a young woman's final stand against the forces of corruption. Justice, a silent guardian, had come for Elise Winters, not in life but in the legacy she left behind. The truth, a beacon in the night, illuminated the path to redemption, a testament to the power of one woman's courage in the face of adversity. The house stood silent, its secrets laid bare, a testament to the enduring power of truth in a world shrouded in shadows. Story 22, The Whispering House. She desired to give the nursery a fresh coat of paint before her little one's arrival. The walls, once a faded blue, now held a silent history within their layers. As the white paint swept across the surface, a hidden message emerged, faint at first, then growing sharper and clearer. Don't let it hear you. Her breath hitched in her throat as she took a step back, noticing something peculiar, tiny handprints imprinted in the fresh paint, too high for any child to reach. This discovery in the nursery of the Morgan residence marked the beginning of what would later be known as the Whispering House case. The young couple had bought the Victorian-style home at a seemingly unbelievable price, unaware of its shadowed past. Detective Sarah Klein, notebook in hand, rang the doorbell. A pregnant woman answered, her belly prominent beneath paint-stained overalls. Dark circles rimmed her eyes, evidence of sleepless nights. The woman, her hands trembling, recounted finding the cryptic message and the eerie handprints. The previous owners left suddenly, she explained. Neighbors said they fled in the dead of night, packing only the essentials into their car. Detective Klein, entering the historic home, heard her footsteps echo on the aged floorboards. In the nursery, she observed the partially painted wall, the hidden message still visible where the painting had been abruptly halted. Beside it, 5 small handprints, frozen in the wet paint at adult height. At the precinct, Detective Klein delved into the property records. The house had changed owners 8 times in 30 years, an unusually high turnover rate. More unsettling were the child welfare reports linked to 3 of those families. Children reported hearing whispers from the walls and feeling watched as they slept. The detective delved further, seeking construction records and historical documents. The house had once belonged to Eleanor Blackwood, a wealthy widow who ran a small orphanage on the premises during the early industrial era. Newspaper clippings mentioned 5 children who had vanished from her care. Authorities of the time assumed they had run away, a common fate for orphans then. When Eleanor passed away, workers renovating the house discovered a hidden room behind the nursery wall. Inside, children's possessions were found: tiny shoes, toys, and clothes, but no traces of the children themselves. The case faded into obscurity, buried in dusty archives. Interviewing former residents, Detective Klein pieced together a chilling pattern. Each family with children recounted strange incidents, toys repositioned overnight, childish laughter echoing in empty corridors, and crayon drawings appearing mysteriously. Most dismissed these occurrences as mere imagination until the ominous writings surfaced. The messages differed slightly in wording but bore the same handwriting, always unveiled during nursery repaintings. A forensic linguist confirmed the writing matched Eleanor Blackwood's journals. The handprints, identical in size and placement across generations, added to the mystery. The investigation took a sinister turn when the detective persuaded the current owners to allow ground-penetrating radar in the basement. The technician detected anomalies beneath the concrete floor, 5 distinct shapes, child-sized. Breaking through the concrete, they uncovered a gruesome truth. 5 small sets of remains arranged in a circle. Forensic analysis indicated the children had perished during Aliner's tenure in the house. Each child wore a pendant engraved with their name, the 5 orphans believed to have run away. Luminol sprayed in the nursery revealed glowing handprints on every wall, hidden beneath layers of paint, unseen to the naked eye. Aliner's journals, retrieved from county archives, exposed her twisted beliefs. She thought orphaned children possessed a unique energy she could harness to prolong her life. The children, desperate to be heard, etched warnings into the walls, hoping future residents would unveil their fate. The case concluded with a proper burial for the victims, finally recognized not as runaways but as victims of murder. The pregnant couple refused to return to the house, leaving it deserted. Detective Klein's final report included photos of the luminol handprints and the hidden message. Justice had been served for the victims, yet an unexplainable presence lingered in the house, a force reaching out through paint and time. The nursery walls were demolished, but workers reported hearing whispers within the wreckage, refusing to return after their shifts. The house was condemned, a cold case filed away, a reminder that some crimes leave indelible marks no amount of fresh paint can erase. Story 23. The coffee house had been his sanctuary for countless years. Same spot, same drink, same tranquility. The barista recognized his presence, yet his identity remained a mystery. Then one day he vanished without a trace. When the authorities investigated his usual haunt, they stumbled upon a wallet left behind. Inside, a driver's license displayed a face, but no name, no address, only an empty void where his identity should have been. The security footage revealed a perplexing truth. He had entered, he had seated himself, but he had never departed. Detective Sarah Mercer studied the footage intently, her fingers grazing the icy metal table. The enigmatic figure, now dubbed John Doe in the case records, seemed ordinary on screen. Average stature, unremarkable features, cloaked in a navy coat with a weathered leather bag in tow. Nothing about him drew attention, heightening the unease of his disappearance. "Replay it," she directed the tech specialist. The footage depicted John entering the coffee house amid the morning rush. He ordered his usual black coffee, no sweetener, and settled at a secluded corner table veiled by a decorative plant. Engrossed in writing in his notebook, he occasionally sipped his coffee and gazed out the window. Then came the pivotal moment. He placed his wallet on the table, rose, and strode towards the restroom corridor. Yet he never returned to his seat. He never exited through any door. He simply evaporated into the ether. "Review the restroom footage," Mercer urged. "He never set foot in any restroom," the specialist replied. "We've scrutinized every camera angle. It's as if he dissolved into thin air." Back at the precinct, Mercer sifted through the wallet's contents spread across her desk. The driver's license photo mirrored their enigma, yet personal details were absent, replaced by vacant spaces. Credit cards bore no names, only 16-digit numbers leading to non-existent accounts. Neatly stacked cash in various denominations, a receipt from the coffee house dated 3 days prior, and a lone business card blank on both sides save for a faintly inked phone number. Upon dialing, the line connected in silence, the sound of rustling paper faintly audible. After 30 seconds, the call abruptly ended. The barista, a familiar face to John, offered limited insight. He seldom spoke, always courteous though generous tipper, Perhaps he had an accent, but his voice was so hushed it was hard to discern. Did he socialize with anyone here, engage in conversations? Mercer inquired. Never, always solitary, always engrossed in writing in that notebook. The notebook lay open on the table beside the forsaken wallet, its pages filled with rows resembling code or encrypted text. Cryptographers from the department struggled to decode it. Some pages housed sketches, architectural designs of buildings unknown in the area. Mercer dispatched officers to canvass the neighborhood with John Doe's photos. No one recognized him. No missing persons descriptions matched his features. His fingerprints eluded all databases. It seemed he existed solely within the confines of the coffee house. Throughout her inquiry, Mercer observed a peculiarity in the security footage. Each morning when John entered the establishment, the camera's time-stamp flickered momentarily. The tech specialist dismissed it as a glitch, but Mercer harbored doubts. Returning to the coffee house, she settled at his table. From this vantage point, she could oversee both the entrance and the hallway towards the restrooms. Suspended between them hung an antique mirror, its ornate frame etched with symbols akin to those in John's notebook. Upon the owner's arrival, Mercer inquired about the mirror. That artifact, it predates my tenure, came with the structure, hefty as can be, requires 2 men to shift it. Has it ever been relocated for cleaning or redecoration? Mercer probed. Never in my time, why do you ask? Approaching the mirror, Mercer scrutinized her reflection. The glass bore a subtle distortion, rendering the reflection deeper than normal. Expecting cool glass, she touched its surface, only to perceive an unusual warmth. The forensics team examined the mirror, discovering a concealed compartment behind it. Nestled within were identical wallets, each containing a driver's license bearing the same photo but void of information. Adjacent lay a leather-bound journal brimming with entries scripted over decades, mirroring the handwriting in the notebook left behind. The final entry read, "The experiment must cease. They draw near. The opportunity wanes." Fingerprints, all matching John Doe's, peppered the hidden alcove. Carbon dating of the earliest wallet hinted it was 50 years old, yet the photo depicted an unaltered visage. The journal entries chronicled experiments in temporal displacement and identity transference, alluding to crossing back and window points. One passage seized Mercer's attention. The coffee house acts as a nexus, a site where realities converge. The mirror serves as the portal. When alignment transpires, passage becomes viable. As the investigation deepened, peculiar occurrences unfurled around the coffee house. Patrons reported witnessing their reflections moving autonomously in the window pane. Several claimed to have glimpsed John Doe seated at his customary table, though surveillance cameras showed no one present. The breakthrough surfaced when an elderly woman contacted the precinct regarding the inquiry. She identified herself as Margaret Keller, a former physicist embroiled in classified government ventures. She recognized John Doe from news broadcasts. His name was Daniel Weston, she elucidated, a brilliant theoretical physicist who vanished while engaged in an experimental project involving quantum mirror surfaces with the potential to facilitate the transference of matter between parallel existences. Keller furnished documents indicating Weston had been deemed deceased following a laboratory mishap. The date of his disappearance aligned with the earliest entry in the journal unearthed behind the mirror. He postulated our reality was but one of myriad concurrent realms, Keller expounded. He theorized specific locales acted as vulnerable nodes between these realms, sites where an individual could potentially traverse. Armed with this revelation, Mercer revisited the coffee house. Unveiling the building's history, she unearthed its foundation atop the grounds that once hosted the research facility where Weston had toiled. The coffee house had been erected directly above the laboratory where he vanished. The inquiry reached its zenith when Mercer, alone one late evening, scrutinized the security footage anew. A detail unnoticed in prior viewings materialized. Reflected in the mirror in the background, John Doe Daniel Weston gazed at his seated self, two iterations of the same man coexisting. Hastening to the coffee house to re-examine the mirror, Mercer discovered it shattered on the floor. Amid the fragments lay a final missive inscribed in the familiar script. The experiment concludes. The gateway seals shut. Do not endeavor to pursue. The enigma of the Phantom Man remains officially unresolved. The coffee house shuttered shortly post-investigation. The edifice eventually razed. Daniel Weston's remains eluded discovery. His notebooks and journals vanished from the evidence chamber under enigmatic circumstances. Detective Mercer resigned from her post in the aftermath. Locals occasionally spy her on her veranda, fervently writing in a notebook akin to Weston's. Adorning her wall hangs a section of an antique mirror, its facade at times rippling when unobserved. Story 24. Renovations always have a way of unraveling the hidden mysteries of the past. Among the debris of old newspapers, shattered trinkets, and faded photographs, a couple stumbled upon a peculiar discovery as they lifted the floorboards of their newly acquired Victorian-era home. Nestled beneath the aged wood was a meticulously folded letter, its paper fragile and the ink weathered, yet its message stark and haunting. Don't trust the one who knocked. Before they could process the gravity of the message, 3 sharp knocks reverberated through the stillness of the empty house, sending a shiver down their spines. Sarah and Michael, drawn to the charm and history of the estate auction purchase, never fathomed that their restoration project would unearth such a disquieting revelation. Detective Alina Reed, seasoned and perceptive, arrived at the scene with her partner, the exposed floorboards revealing a dark void beneath. With hands weathered by years of investigative work, she delicately retrieved the ominous note, mindful of the unavoidable contamination from the couple's touch. Reed observed the genuine fear etched on Sarah and Michael's faces as they recounted the chilling knocks that had unsettled them. Background checks on the couple yielded nothing suspicious newlyweds with solid credit and stable jobs. However, the house harbored a complex history. Previously owned by the Hargrove family for generations, it had stood empty for 2 years following the passing of the last inhabitant, Margaret Hargrove, an elderly recluse with no known enemies and a peaceful demeanor in the eyes of her neighbors. Her demise was attributed to natural causes, as confirmed by the coroner, yet an unsettling aura lingered. Forensic analysis dated the cryptic note to nearly 2 decades prior, its distressed handwriting hinting at fear or urgency. At that time, Margaret, in her 60s, had lived with her late husband, Franklin. Reed delved deeper into the investigation, scouring county records and interviewing acquaintances of the Hargroves. Franklin, a revered retired teacher with a knack for woodworking, had left behind his crafted furniture in the house. An ex-student recalled his teacher's descent into paranoia during his final teaching years, mentioning a constant fear of being watched, dismissed by many as early signs of dementia. A breakthrough emerged during Reed's interview with Margaret's sister, whose fading memory held a crucial fragment of the past. Margaret feared him in the end, she whispered. Not Franklin, no, the man who knocked, the collector. Intrigued, Reed probed further, uncovering a grim tale of Franklin's gambling debts and the menacing visits from the collector Victor Mercer, a lone shark who had vanished without a trace 2 decades ago. Franklin's refusal to sell the house to settle his debts had led to a fatal confrontation, resulting in Victor's demise and a chilling secret buried beneath the house. Forensic excavation unearthed Victor Mercer's remains, confirming the long-buried truth. Margaret, out of fear and loyalty, had aided Franklin in concealing the grim aftermath. Her diaries, concealed in the attic, chronicled the torment she endured, haunted by phantom knocks and the burden of their dark secret. The case, pieced together by forensic evidence and Margaret's harrowing accounts, unraveled a tale of tragic choices and concealed truths. The house, tainted by its history, bore witness to a chapter of justice served in the shadows. Sarah and Michael, unable to bear the weight of the revelations, relinquished the house, leaving it abandoned with its unsettling legacy intact. Whispers among locals spoke of spectral knocks resonating through the vacant halls at night, a chilling reminder of the past that refused to fade. Detective Reed closed the case, acknowledging that some mysteries, veiled in shadows and unanswered questions, linger beyond the grasp of closure. The note, preserved as evidence, held a haunting message: "Don't trust the one who knocked." Whether the warning was directed at Mercer, Franklin, or an enigmatic figure concealed in the shadows, the truth remained obscured. Margaret's final years, plagued by the echoes of the past, left a legacy of unanswered whispers and lingering dread. The house stood as a silent witness to a tale of betrayal and retribution, its secrets buried but never truly forgotten in the passage of time. Story 25. In the dusty depths of the attic, buried beneath layers of forgotten treasures, lay an old box. Within its confines rested memories frozen in time-faded Polaroids capturing moments of joy and celebration. Birthdays, family gatherings, a glimpse into the past of strangers. But one photo stood out among the rest, shrouded in an eerie mystery that sent shivers down Rebecca's spine. The last photo revealed a familiar setting, the very living room she now called her own. The same couch, the same curtains, yet the family captured in the image was not hers. And there, lurking in the shadows of the hallway, a figure stood watching, barely discernible in the dim light. Rebecca's fingers trembled as she held the photograph, the edges vibrating with an unexplained energy. The family in the picture, a woman with honey blonde hair, a man with thick glasses, and two children, smiled obliviously at the camera, unaware of the looming presence behind them. Their expressions frozen in a moment of happiness, juxtaposed against the lurking danger just a few feet away. Descending the creaking wooden steps, Rebecca felt the weight of the house press in around her, suffocating in its emptiness. Placing the photo on her kitchen counter, she scrutinized it under the harsh glare of fluorescent light. The resemblance was uncanny: the archway, the crown molding, the bay window bathing the room in morning light. This was her sanctuary, yet these faces were strangers. Enter Detective Morgan, a weathered investigator with eyes that bore deep into the unknown. His leather jacket whispered tales of past investigations as he examined the photo with a meticulous gaze. Flipping it over, he sought answers in the blank void of the back. "The Nelsons who sold you this house, what do you know of them?" His voice rumbled in the silence. Rebecca confessed her ignorance, the details of the sale shrouded in obscurity. Morgan's expression revealed nothing as he proposed taking the photo for further investigation. The journey into the enigma had begun. Delving into the annals of the house's history, the detective uncovered a pattern of families who had come and gone, leaving behind only whispers of their existence. The Nelsons, the Crawfords, the Mornos, and now the Sutherlands, a family that had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a void that defied explanation. Forensic analysis unveiled eerie details within the photograph, a frozen moment captured by a hidden observer. The figure in the hallway, tall and male, a specter of the past haunting the present. As the pieces fell into place, a chilling realization dawned: the house held secrets darker than the night. The basement, a chamber of echoes and shadows, yielded its grim harvest. Bodies preserved in the cool embrace of the earth, trapped in a macabre tableau of forgotten lives. Among them, the Sutherlands, their fate entwined with others who had shared their cursed abode. As the investigation unfolded, a hidden chamber in the attic revealed a chilling truth, a journal chronicling the meticulous observations of a presence unseen. The final entry, a harbinger of impending dread, spoke of a new target and an accelerated timeline. Rebecca, now a specter in her own right, sought refuge in a hotel under the watchful eye of the law. But the darkness followed, whispering its secrets in the dead of night. A phone call, breathing, the mechanical click of a camera, capturing moments unseen by mortal eyes. The house stood silent, a sentinel of the unknown, its windows darkened by the weight of its secrets. The truth of Samuel Whitfield, a phantom of the past, remained elusive. Was he a ghost, a specter condemned to haunt the corridors of his creation? Or had he slipped into the shadows, a predator seeking new prey in the depths of night? And so the legacy of the man in the photograph endured, a mystery woven into the fabric of time. New families, new homes, new watchers in the shadows, an eternal cycle of darkness and light, of secrets and revelations. Those who dared seek the truth found themselves ensnared in a web of whispers, their fates intertwined with the ghosts of the past. Story 26. In the quiet hush of the night, the aged apartment exuded a sense of mystery. The heating system murmured with a gentle groan. The pipes whispered secrets of the past as they rattled softly. It was all part of the building's ancient charm, or so she believed. That is until a faint, eerie voice pierced through the stillness, drifting through the vents like a ghostly whisper. It was not the typical murmur of a neighbor's conversation. It was a call, a beckoning that seemed to know her name. Intrigued and unsettled, she leaned closer, pressing her ear against the cold metal grate. A rush of icy air brushed against her skin, followed by a soft, almost playful declaration, "I know you can hear me." Detective Morgan Shaw stood in the heart of the empty apartment, a solitary figure amidst the quiet chaos of the scene. Her gaze lingered on the rusted vent cover, forcibly removed from the wall. The forensics team moved with precision around her, documenting every detail with flashes of light from their cameras. The missing woman, Alina Reeves, had vanished without a trace for 7 long days before anyone took notice. And what they uncovered within the ventilation system was beyond comprehension. Officer Patel recited his notes, revealing that Alina had reported hearing voices whispering through the vents, only to have her concerns dismissed as mere quirks of the aging building's infrastructure. Shaw knelt by the vent, observing the deep scratches along its edges, a silent testament to a desperate attempt to break free from within. The marks told a story of fear and urgency, of someone fighting to escape a hidden terror. Alina, a beloved kindergarten teacher with a penchant for nurturing houseplants, had seemingly fallen prey to an unseen malevolence that lurked within the walls of her own home. Her sister's tearful account painted a portrait of a woman plagued by paranoia in her final days, convinced that invisible eyes were watching her every move, whispering through the very vents that now seemed to mock them with their silence. As Shaw pieced together the fragments of Alina's life, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched herself. The meticulously arranged room, the untouched coffee mug, the chair positioned beneath the vent, as if someone had been listening intently, all spoke of a presence that lingered, unseen yet palpable. The forensic evidence woven a chilling narrative. Fibers from Alina's favorite cardigan trapped in the vent, a foreign fingerprint on the vent cover's interior, and haunting audio recordings from Alina's phone painted a picture of a sinister intruder who had made the walls his domain, his voice a constant whisper in the darkness. The history of the building only deepened the mystery. Previous tenants had fled in terror, haunted by inexplicable noises and phantom voices that seemed to echo from within the very structure itself. Harold Weber, the enigmatic building superintendent, remained a shadowy figure with keys to every door, his calm demeanor masking a well of secrets that threatened to spill over. A hidden passage within Alina's bathroom unveiled a chilling truth, a secret pathway that wound through the building's inner workings, a conduit for the unseen predator to move undetected. The discovery of a cache of personal items in Weber's possession, relics of past tenants kept as souvenirs of his twisted obsessions, confirmed Shaw's worst suspicions. Weber's arrest was a quiet affair, his serene smile belying the horrors he had inflicted upon those who had unknowingly shared their lives with him. In the darkness of his immaculate apartment, Shaw found a digital diary of his twisted fantasies, a chronicle of his intimate connection with Alina and others who had fallen victim to his insidious games. As the trial unfolded, Shaw bore witness to the unraveling of a mind consumed by the belief that the building itself spoke through him, a conduit for its dark whispers to reach out and ensnare the unsuspecting. But justice prevailed, and Weber was condemned for his crimes, his facade of tranquility shattered by the weight of his guilt. The echoes of the past still linger within the vacant apartment building, its walls holding secrets that refuse to be silenced. Despite the veneer of normalcy that now cloaks the once troubled building, residents speak of strange occurrences, a chilling breeze that carries phantom voices, whispers that dance on the edge of perception, a reminder that some horrors never truly fade away. The building stands as a silent witness to the darkness that once dwelled within, a haunting reminder that some mysteries are best left undisturbed. And as the heating system groans and the pipes rattle in the dead of night, the residents can only wonder what unseen presence lingers within the walls, waiting to be heard once more in the stillness of the night. Story 27. The old Polaroid held secrets within its faded frame, capturing a birthday celebration long past. Faces beaming, candles dancing in the gentle glow, nothing out of the ordinary. Yet as the daughter sifted through the box of forgotten memories left by her mother, she noticed it, a figure lurking in the background just beyond the group's joyful gathering. A man shrouded in shadows, standing ominously outside the flickering candlelight. He did not belong to the family pictured. No recollection existed of his presence that day, and yet with each passing photo he drew nearer. Sarah Winters stumbled upon the collection while sorting through her mother's attic in the aftermath of the funeral. A simple cardboard box marked Memories held a treasure trove of yellowed photographs documenting family moments from her childhood. What should have brought solace and nostalgia turned into a haunting mystery that gripped her tightly. In the initial photo, he was a mere whisper of darkness, a silhouette at the periphery during her 7th birthday bash. The mysterious figure lingered by the sliding glass door, features obscured, a silent observer. In the subsequent snapshot taken moments later, he had ventured inside. By the 3rd photograph, he loomed behind her uncle, unnoticed by all captured in the frames. A chill ran down Sarah's spine as she beheld the unsettling progression. Trembling, she reached out to her father, seeking answers. "Dad, who is this man in the background of these pictures?" A heavy silence hung in the air before a sharp inhale broke it. "What man? There should be no one but family." Her father's voice quivered in response. Desperate for clarity, she sent digital copies of the Polaroids to him. His immediate call back revealed a tremor in his usually steady tone. "This can't be. We would have noticed a stranger." Detective Marcus Reed listened intently as Sarah laid out the eerie photographs on his desk in the dimly lit precinct. Rain droplets tapped against the windows, casting dancing shadows over the evidence spread before them. With weathered hands, the detective meticulously examined each photo, his gaze narrowing with intrigue. "No one recognized this individual?" he inquired, his voice a blend of neutrality and curiosity. "No one," Sarah affirmed, arranging the images in chronological order. As they delved deeper, the detective's initial skepticism wavered, witnessing the deliberate movement of the shadowy figure through the captured moments, inching closer to the unsuspecting children, culminating in a haunting final image. "The photographer," Reed proposed, skepticism lingering in his voice. "My mother took these. She set the timer and joined the frame," Sarah clarified. "Copies were made, a case file opened, and an investigation commenced. Interrogations with surviving guests of the party yielded no recognition of the mysterious man. No hired help, no uninvited guests, no logical explanation. The secluded property, chosen for its privacy, had harbored a hidden presence that eluded notice." Facial recognition software faltered in unmasking the obscured figure, as if he possessed a keen awareness of the camera's lens. Yet a sense of purpose emanated from his concealed form, a meticulousness in remaining unseen. Just as the inquiry seemed at an impasse, Sarah unearthed more photos from different family gatherings, different years, all shadowed by the enigmatic figure lurking in the background. A tech specialist enhanced the images, unveiling hidden details under the stark digital light. A scar on the wrist, a distinctive ring, a faint reflection revealing facial features long shrouded in obscurity. Breakthrough came with dental records, a match to Robert Keller, a maintenance worker linked to unsolved child abductions from the region, cases dormant for decades. Keller's employment history tied him to the rental property where Sarah's birthday had unfolded, where families had congregated, where children had vanished without a trace. Excavation beneath Keller's former residence unearthed chilling artifacts buried beneath the concrete. A hair clip mirroring that of a missing girl, a toy car belonging to a vanished boy, a bracelet identical to one Sarah had thought lost in her youth. Alone in her apartment, surrounded by the photos that had unraveled the hidden horrors of years past, Sarah pondered the haunting revelations. The detective's call earlier had confirmed the identification of remains near one of the vacation properties a missing child finally found. The candles in the final birthday photo cast a warm glow over her family's jubilant faces, frozen in time. And amidst the celebration, the figure loomed behind her younger self, a phantom presence veiled in shadow but undeniably present, a specter biding its time. The interconnected threads of unsolved cases spanning decades wove a tapestry of grim truths. Families received closure, though it was a bitter pill to swallow. The shadow in the family photos emerged into the harsh light of justice, his concealed existence finally unmasked after years of anonymity. Sarah carefully returned the photos to their box, now transformed into evidence, a testament to the unseen dangers that lurk within captured moments, stealthy figures navigating celebrations unseen, leaving naught but a fleeting imprint in the annals of time.